Yeah, y'all don't say any ugly words now.
I know, better.
I think we look pretty good.
Let me show my Christmas shirt.
Ann, are you currently working?
Yeah, there you go. That's good, Bill.
I tell people that I'm working, but not for a paycheck anymore. So I think
That's
that's
what happens when you retire.
language around retirement, what that really means, because it's kind of like you have more control over your schedule.
Right. Well, sometimes.
Yes, exactly.
You get to pick and choose a little bit.
That's true. That's true. But that image of people sitting on the front porch and just staring out into the wilderness is probably not very true for most, right? Which is a good thing. I think that keeps us healthy and well. Yeah.
Well, for this group, it really is, because we really emphasize, exercise, movement,
Absolutely.
keep people on the.
Spent the morning collecting coats and warm clothing for our local elementary school. Their clothes closet was empty. I am
Wow.
so thrilled. We got 7 bags and 6 boxes of clothes for them for Monday.
You ready to let people in?
Pardon me?
You ready, Johnny, Pat, are you ready to let people in?
I think so.
As long as we don't have any inner talking, I guess, right?
We're 2 minutes away. Hi, Glenn. Good morning, afternoon.
Hello.
Hey there, Glenn.
Hello.
Where are you going?
There's Rebecca. Edward Leeds, good afternoon. How you doing?
Hi, Helene.
Good afternoon, everybody. How is everybody doing all at once?
I'm
Yeah.
a little bit fatter than I was a week ago.
Uh-oh, what happened?
Thanksgiving.
Well, I'll top that. I've got some kind of a stomach thing going, so if I disappear from the meeting, you'll know why.
Poor you.
Oh boy.
Poor you.
Thank you. I think it's a pill.
Whoops, you're muted.
I think it's a pill I took that didn't want to stay put. So hopefully it's
Okay.
done its thing. But that was a surprise about 10 minutes ago.
Hmm.
Oh,
Can we turn that off, Dan?
there's Shauna. Shauna,
Hey, Jenna.
see ya. Sorry about the link. I've still got to fix it.
No worries. I'm used to tech issues anyway, so it's just
Good.
one for the list.
I was hoping you'd be flexible. All right, I've got 2 o'clock.
All right, and I see we have, what, 9 people?
I got 11, but I'm on there twice, so
Yeah, I'm on there twice also.
there you go. That counts for that.
17 people.
Yeah.
17 people.
17 screens, 15 people. And here's an 18th.
All right, I'm going to head and start, and I want to welcome everybody to the monthly neuropathy meeting. I hope everybody had a nice Thanksgiving. I certainly did. It shows on my weight moderator. Anyway, I'll be your moderator for today. And as you can see, we have a guest speaker, Ann Wilson, who will be introduced by, oh, please bring up the agenda.
Okay. Can you see that?
Yes, if you can go to slide 2.
Slide 2 be fine. Okay, as you can see, we have a guest speaker, Ann Wilson, who's going to be introduced in a short time by Joanne. And Wilson will speak, and then we'll have a Q&A, and we're going to have a break. And I'm going to introduce any new attendees, and then we're going to have any open discussion. And then Judge Vaughn is going to try to talk about some questions that have come up about joining and donating our group. And then our president, Pat's going to have some closing remarks. And then we're going into overtime. And before I start, I just want to give out some, you can, during the Q&A or the open discussion, please remember to mute yourself if you're moving around because of background noise. Also, if you have a question, you can raise your hand, or you can use the, be recognized by the reaction feature at the bottom of your screen. Also remember, when you're going to speak, please unmute yourself. Also, please take your own notes. Are there any questions about the little shop talk? Okay. Good to see you, Peter. How you doing, sir? All right, Joanne.
Okay,
The floor is yours.
okay. Well, today we're fortunate to have Ann Wilson as our presenter. And Ann's going to speak to us about our mental health and well-being as persons with chronic disorders, peripheral neuropathy. And perhaps some of us have other health challenges as well, or we're caregivers, etc. And I think it's pretty well known that our mental health can take a hit during the holiday season because, like everyone, we tend to have expectations of ourselves and others that can't always be realized, especially as our neuropathy progresses. So Ann is going to provide us with some guidance for navigating this difficult time of year, and also give us some information about mental health resources in Northern Virginia and the DC area in general. Ann's credentials are very impressive. She's an international nurse clinician with more than 45 years of practice that has included designing and leading well-being programs for communities. She has worked in more than 47 countries to advocate for improved health care that honors the mind, body, and spirit together. She has led numerous retreats focusing on health and healing, as well as meditation and spiritual development. She has a Master of Science degree in nursing from Catholic University and a Master of Arts in theology from Wesley Theological Seminary in Washington, D.C. Okay, Ann, welcome, and we'll turn it over to you.
Well, thank you so much for allowing me to spend a little time with you today. And as Joanne said, I think we'll just look at some what I'm calling some tools for navigating the holiday season that are also perfectly fine for other times of the year. But we know that this time of year can make us feel a little bit like this pup in the picture who is just kind of strung out. And it doesn't really matter. This is an issue for people of all ages and all mind and body experiences. So I think it's worth taking a little time to remember that in the United States currently around 40 million adults live with some sort of anxiety disorder. And that figure comes from the Anxiety and Depression Association of America. But just to say that this is not a small group, it is a significant percentage of the population that has some some sort of issue. And it's really not hard to understand because we live in an age where we're bombarded constantly with information that tells us what we should or shouldn't be doing, tells us we should be anxious about almost everything. And no matter how often we try to shut that out, it's just constant. So then we add to that the holiday bright lights and festive cheer. And although a lot of that is, intended to and experienced as being positive, it also begins to make us feel like the whole world is kind of closing in on us. So that's one of the reasons that we can start to have feelings of either isolation, loneliness, grief, or sadness. And this can be true, again, for either those who are not generally all the way through the continuum to those who have a very chronic clinical depression. There's an associate professor of psychology at the University of Arizona who has written her name is Mary Frances O'Connor. And she has written a book called The Grieving Brain, which is a good resource if you want to check that out at some point. And it's about the surprising science of how we learn from love and loss. And in that book, she reminds us that our bonds and rituals with loved ones are deeply imprinted in our brains. So that when expectations, whether they are positive or negative, clash with the reality of new situations we experience, this can evoke anything from grief, pain, or deeper suffering. And so our internal map no longer aligns with the world itself. And the new plans we're trying to make tend to have holes in them. And we know we can't replicate the past or completely erase pain. But what we can do is learn some ways to either establish comfort and release of emotions or create some new rituals so that we feel a little bit more at a steady state. Let's go to the next slide because I wanted to just say a bit about what I'd like to cover during this time together. We know that especially for this time when it's particularly hard if we've just lost a loved one or if it's the season in which we remember experiences we've had with a loved one. How do we approach the holidays? We don't necessarily always want to block that out because some of those are very pleasant memories, but we do want to think about ways that we can honor loved ones, maybe with a new ritual. Sometimes it's a gift that we donate to a hospital or a favorite nonprofit to celebrate the life of that person. If there was a concert or some sort of joy like that meant a lot to us and that person, we participate in that. Or there may be times when we say, this year I think I'm just going to pass that by. And one of the things that's important for all of us to remember is that not all negative feelings during the holidays are signs of depression. There is something called the sort of seasonal disorder, which we want to we want to honor that. But sometimes it's just, there are days that all of us have a down day when we just have to step back and say, this doesn't have to last forever. Let me see what I can do short of taking a beach vacation or spending money at a spa, although I highly recommend the latter of those. So today we're going to cover some different forms of anxiety and depression and why, in addition to what I just mentioned, the holidays tend to be catalysts for sadness and depression, and then spend most of the time looking at some tools for either preventing or minimizing those, including some local resources. And I also want to touch on a few strategies that may help you support someone else. Sometimes we aren't having the depression, but someone else is. And it helps us, I think, to know what works and what are some things that we may want to avoid doing in terms of supporting another. So let's go on to the next slide then.
1 second.
Okay.
It was November 27th.
Yeah, I just clicked on the screen here. Sorry, let me start that over again.
Say that I think it can be helpful to clarify terms, because sometimes we throw around anxiety or depression or other things like that, and want to make sure we're all talking about the same thing.
Well, I lost your slide there.
You want me to go on while you're looking for it?
Yeah, I'll pull it up in just a minute. I need to just find it again. I clicked it off, is what I did.
Right.
So yes, well, you go ahead and continue, and I'll get that slide back.
Right. So just in terms of clarifying, there is a continuum from anxiety to what might be called clinical depression. And words that somehow times get used as sort of interchangeably in that continuum are things like sadness, grief, loneliness, or isolation. And almost everyone has occasional experiences of sadness or grief. But what we want to pay attention to is when they begin to control or limit a person's capacity to move through daily activities successfully, then that's a trigger or a catalyst to say, we need to get some help. So let's go to slide 4. What do we mean when we say anxiety? Anxiety is the body's natural response to stress, and it feels like apprehension or fear about what's going to happen next. Again, most of us experience this at different points to one degree or another. However, it's typically temporary and doesn't impact people's lives for a long time. Common feelings range from fear and worry to butterflies in your stomach or a pounding heart. You could feel out of control, as though your mind and body are disconnected. And some people may experience anxiety disorders such as panic disorders or phobias, obsessive compulsive disorders, separation anxiety, or post-traumatic stress disorder. Other symptoms may include nightmares or painful, uncontrollable memories or thoughts, and increased heart rate, rapid breathing, restlessness, or difficulty concentrating. So if we go to the next slide, this is kind of what it feels like.
Ouch.
And it's certainly not pleasant. So what's the difference between stress and anxiety? Stress happens from demands in our brain or body caused by an event or activity that makes us worried or nervous. Anxiety is the same negative feeling and can be a reaction to that stress, but it can also happen to those without any obvious stressors. Both cause similar symptoms, but as before, stress is usually induced by a specific event or activity. Think about maybe when any of us was learning how to drive and we had to go take the exam for our driver's license. That was something that could be anxiety producing. Or we're going to interview for a new job, or we're getting ready to retire, and all the anxieties that may produce. So, and we know that some stress can be positive. Activity such as exercise is a stressing event, but it's good for us. So we don't want to just we don't want to just think of stress as always negative. But the negative events or activities are those that result in things like stomach aches or dizziness, trouble focusing, or headaches. So if we go to slide 6, when does anxiety transition to clinical depression?
I did it again.
What we want to pay attention to here is that each of us has a different tolerance level for happening on a day-to-day basis. And clinical depression, which affects about 6.7% of American adults, hangs around. It's kind of like what I want to say, maybe a disease in the garden or whatever. It doesn't go away quickly. Excuse me. So if you or someone you know finds that the symptoms I just talked about last more than 2 weeks and or are affecting your ability to do the day-to-day basic activities, eating, sleeping, energy level, things like that, then that's a good sign that it's time to seek help with a mental health professional. And certainly for anyone who is beginning to have suicidal thoughts, that's important to follow up on. Again, we know that there's something called seasonal affective disorder, which happens during times of year when we have more dark than light. And there are now numerous management tools for that. So again, seeing a mental health professional to talk about that is a very, very good option. I don't want to spend much time on how the brain works, but I do want to highlight just a couple of things, because the impact of the brain on or how depression and stress impacts our brain is important. And we're learning more and more about how that can provide long-term or create long-term issues. So let's go to slide 7 and take a look at this. Again, this is not intended to be a session on brain functions in great detail, but just to say that what we're learning is that there are 3 factors that seem to be particularly important in terms of what happens to the brain. Studies show that depression can lower gray matter volume. And our gray matter, of course, is what keeps our brains functioning at a high level. And so anything that causes the gray matter to deteriorate or to die off is an issue. The hippocampus is the part of your brain that is very important for learning and for memory. And it also connects to other parts of the brain that control emotions, and particularly those that are the stress hormones. So that makes it vulnerable to depression. And then the prefrontal cortex is an area in the brain that plays a role in your higher level thinking and planning. So there's evidence that these parts of the brain get smaller when depression continues unresolved or untreated. And then your thalamus is like it's an egg-shaped structure in the middle of the brain. And think of it kind of like a relay station for sensory information. So for hearing, taste, touch, not smell, everything but smell, it is the place where information passes through and gets sent out to an appropriate direction. And your thalamus also plays a role in sleep and learning and memory. Then deep within each half of our brain lies the caudate nucleus, and this one is where our visual information, movement, and memory is processed. So dysfunction can cause conditions like dementia or Parkinson's disease. The caudate nucleus is part of the brain structure that makes up the basal ganglia and helps control learning, memory, reward motivation, emotion, and romantic exchanges. And finally, the insula is responsible for sensory processing. So among all of the lobes, it seems to be the one that's often marginalized, and for that reason, it's considered to be a bit mystical among medical students because there's less information about it. But we know that all of these together are extremely affected by depression that goes on. Experts still aren't sure whether depression or inflammation comes first, but people who have a major depressive episode have higher levels of certain kinds of proteins or chemicals that are linked to brain inflammation. And studies show that these are even higher in people who've had untreated major depressive disorder for 10 years or longer. So why do we care? Because there is now significant evidence from research that uncontrolled brain inflammation can hurt or kill brain cells. It can prevent new cells from growing, which then causes thinking problems and speeds up brain aging. Again, there are lots of good studies that are available if you want to know more about the intricacies of that, but I think it's very telling that we now, there's no doubt anymore that inflammation is an important issue. If you haven't read it, one other resource I highly recommend is a book by Bessel van der Kolk called The Body Keeps the Score, Brain, Mind, and Body in the Healing. It's a very well-researched book, and it makes the point very clearly that when we don't treat or manage chronic stress in some way or other, our bodies say, okay, if you won't manage this, I will. And we experience all kinds of different physical as well as mental health issues because of that. So we don't want to take this lightly at any point in time. So let's go to slide 8 and talk about some prevention tools. We know that the best way to stop stress is before it starts, but that's easy for any of us to say and pretty hard for most of us to actually do, because by the time we recognize that we're stressed, we're already stressed, so it's a little hard to go backwards. However, I want to talk about some basic tools that I think will be able to at least help manage that in a way that is a little more reasonable. So let's take a look at slide 9, and I'm going to talk about these different areas, a little bit about each one. The first one is setting boundaries, and I'm sure we've all been told about that. However, one of the things that is important to be mindful of is what do we do? How do we do that? And I want to just take a minute here for us to help us be self-disciplined about self-care. We need to be our own best managers in that regard. And so one thing that is crucial is breathing. And when we're anticipating or entering a situation that we know or we're reasonably sure is going to cause anxiety, I want to just take a minute to practice what I mean by breathing. So wherever you are, if you can just take a deep breath and breathe in for a count of 6. So we're going to breathe in for a count of 6. We're going to hold it for 6, and then we're going to breathe out. So let's just try that now together just to get the hang of it. And you can keep doing it during this presentation if you like. So we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and hold it for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Exhale 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This works best if you do it 3 times. So let's do it 2 more times. So let's breathe in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Hold it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and exhale 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. One more time, breathe in, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Hold it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and breathe out, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, this is something that we can do when we're standing in line in the parking lot, waiting for traffic to disperse a little bit. And, unlike some forms of meditation, you can do this while you're driving as well without worrying about causing a safety hazard. So just keep that in mind. That's something that everybody can do. Try it. If you can go to 7 instead of 6 for each of those sets, that's great. If not, find a number that is going to work for you and that you think you're willing to do repeatedly. Something else that is important to do in terms of setting boundaries is to schedule relaxation time. And by that, I don't mean just thinking about it. Actually write it on your calendar in the same way you would if you were going to go to the dentist or a job interview. And make sure that once it's on the calendar, just like those other things, that you don't say, well, I don't have to do it today, but recognize that no, it's on the calendar. You need to be disciplined about hanging on to that. And then another is to start the day by reminding yourself of the small things that give you purpose and also remind you that, you're still above ground, you're still able to see, maybe not moving quite as well as before, but what are the things that you're still able to do? And give gratitude, be grateful for those things in a way that helps you to feel a little less focused on the things that may not be working so well. A former student of mine suggested at one point in time that she created or has created a coping sheet. And she said, I like to use Post-its and put things that are important to me or that make me feel good on little Post-its in beautiful colors, and tape them to the refrigerator, tape them in the office wherever she's working, so that when she needs a little quick boost, she can look around and take a look at those. She said that some of hers are funny quotes, some of them are funny pictures of animals or people, but just whatever it takes to have some reminders all around you within easy eyesight so that you can see them at a moment's notice. And part of this is discovering our spiritual, what I'm calling our spiritual side, and by this I mean our capacity for awe and wonder. Even for those who have no movement at all, we can still look around and see and experience the things in the world that are just amazing. Whether it's the recent glorious colors of the trees changing colors, a cloud formation, whatever it is that helps you to feel that there's a little something else that is going on in a positive way. Staying connected is so important. In this area, especially during the holidays, there are a gazillion opportunities for volunteer experiences. If you've never done any of that, or if there are limitations that might prevent you from doing certain things, there still are opportunities for that. You can go online, or actually now during this season, in the papers, there are always links for groups who need volunteers. Maybe that's not your thing. Maybe something like visiting an aquarium, or going to an uplifting musical event, or being outdoors. I'm going to come back to that because that's quite critical. Sign up for a class, something that you thought you might like to do. Could be cooking, it could be a book review group. Just do it. Remembering that for many of those groups, if you're someone who worries about what people might think, or that you don't have the background or whatever, you may not see most of these folks again anyway. But either way, just get out there and do something that's a little bit new and different. One of the resources that I was exploring for this session is a 2021 review that showed that volunteering for 2 or 3 hours a week, or even just 1 to 10 hours a month, has significant mental health benefits, such as providing some meaning and purpose, developing empathy toward others, feeling like you matter, and also making a contribution to something larger than yourself, in addition to being socially connected. There's a group called Volunteer Match. And if you haven't volunteered before and you're trying to figure out what might be a volunteer opportunity that you would like, that's a good place to start. Other activities like that can be, I know we just had Wreaths Across America here in the Northern Virginia area, but as I say, I think if you go to Volunteer Match, it'll help you find something in your neighborhood that would be a good match for you. Can't say enough about getting outdoors. We know that 15 minutes outside stimulates endorphin production, which helps to elevate our mood. And it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be doing a 5K run or anything like that. It can just be simply being outside. Look at a tree, look at some flowers, just sit on the porch. Anything to get you outside and get your vitamin A is going to make you feel more upbeat. There is a group based in Northern Virginia, which is called the Center for Spirituality and Nature. You can go on their website, and they have both self-guided tours that you can do in your neighborhood, or appreciating nature without leaving home. So that's a good resource to check out in terms of getting attuned with nature in a way that will help you to keep your mood elevated. Make sure you're sharing how you're feeling with loved ones. Sometimes I think we assume that people will know if we're not feeling upbeat. Most of us are not mind readers. And so give yourself permission to feel what you're feeling, but also say to someone, you know, I just need a venting partner for 5 minutes. I just need an opportunity to share this and then let it go. Never underestimate the power and love of the community where you are. People want to help. Sometimes all we need to do is ask for it. One of the most important things we can do to keep our energy levels up is to limit social media. We are having more and more studies show that the people who spend significant hours on social media of any kind are showing over time signs of some brain cell deterioration. And this includes Zoom. You know, during COVID, we all became very, thank goodness we had ways to stay connected over the internet and such. But we want to be sure that, as with other of the electronic media, that we put some limits around Zoom as well. It's fine for small periods of time, but you don't want to make that your daily routine, and certainly not just before you go to sleep. Getting adequate and sound sleep is something that is very hard for some people. And again, there are some very nice resources available to us here. One is, if you don't already know it, it's called Insight Timer. Insight offers a broad array of meditation tools. Some are specifically to help people sleep or to help people get into a deeper form of sleep. We know that chronic insomnia damages brain cells over time as well. So Insight Timer is not the only one, but it's certainly a very good place to start, and it has all of its options are free. Make sure that you're maintaining a healthy diet. That doesn't mean that you don't do anything festive, but do it in moderation. We do know that overloading on either alcohol or caffeine can be a problem. So let's go to slide number 10. Sometimes prevention is not enough. And when you've tried all kinds of things and you don't feel that there's any improvement, you're not noticing that anything has been helpful, then that's a good sign that it's time to get some extra help. And I would say the three most important signs that should be indications to you or to others you care about are when you're feeling that you want to be extremely isolated. Now, obviously, all of us have times when we just need a little bit of cocoon time to recover from all of the festivities going on. But when this becomes something that is again a longer term pattern, that's not helpful. And certainly any thoughts of self-harm or suicidal thoughts should get you on the phone or into the office of someone who can help you with that. So let's go to slide 11, some local resources. I've just put a few on here because I think if you use the resources that are on this slide, they will take you to others as well. And again, I think one of the things that many of us are working with communities to do is to recognize that asking for help is a kind of courage. It's not something that any of us should be ashamed of, but rather this is really a courageous thing to do. And it's important for us as well as those who care about us that we don't have to be in this alone. Again, if we can come back to these resources, if you like, at the end of this discussion, but we're incredibly fortunate to live in an area where there are tons of good resources in addition to the ones that are here. During the holidays, there tend to be many other helplines, they're generally called, but these will take you to those as well. I want to just say a bit about supporting others. So let's go to slide 12. Because as I said early on, sometimes you may have pretty good coping skills and feel like you're managing as well as could be expected, but you may have someone in your realm of family or friends who is not. And the National Alliance on Mental Health or Mental Illness recommends a couple of things if you're helping someone who has either prolonged sadness or depression. One is to learn more about it so you can understand how it may affect people, and then learn the early symptoms so that if you are proactively trying to support someone, you know when it's time to say, you know, I think maybe it would be helpful if you talk to a professional, because I'm not the one who's really trained to deal with some of the things that may be a problem. Be honest when you're speaking with someone. I'm sorry for your pain. Your grief and sadness is much more effective than saying, I know how you feel. Even if that's your first, it's okay to sort of take a minute, listen, and then say, I'm sorry. You know, I understand how hard it is to experience this kind of pain or grief or sadness. And then offer to help. You know, would you like someone to go? Would you like me to go with you to see someone? What else do you think would help you in this situation? Remember that active listening means being fully present and not checking your phone or doing other things when you're listening to the person. And maybe sometimes it's helpful to say, I'm willing to be a venting partner for 5 minutes. And then again, put some boundaries around that so that you're being honest with your own ability to help, but also helping the other person to establish some boundaries too. Especially remain calm if someone is in real crisis. And again, reach out for help. Don't feel that this is all something that you have to do alone. Again, they're the 911 and 311 are both numbers that can be used in a severe crisis. Let's go to slide 13. Because part of helping someone else is also about making sure that you can be an advocate for your own health and well-being. And I like this particular picture because, you know, here's the kitten who sees himself or herself as a lion. And sometimes I feel like in our human situations, we tend to do the opposite. You know, we see ourselves as something less than. So in living in a fast-paced world, we're getting information all the time in all different kinds of forms. And choosing to be an advocate for your own health and well-being is important so that you can not only experience joy yourself, but also help others who may need it. So how do you do that? You know, you can find photos or drawings of superheroes, whether they're human or non-human. Again, as I mentioned earlier, post them in places you frequent to remind yourself that you are also worthy of holiday cheer and goodwill. You're not responsible for the happiness of negative people, but you can certainly offer them your support. And when you're doing so, be aware of additional time you may need to refill your own well so you can be supported. There's a fairly common saying in Africa that a dry well yields no water. So when we let ourselves be so drained, then we're not of use to ourselves or anyone else. Imagine yourself wrapped in a warm comfort blanket and stay with that imagery for a few minutes. There is also a Buddhist making present joy exercise, which I want to share with you, and you can try this as well. So it's repeating the number 9 in 3 sets. So it's 999, 999, 999. And you just keep repeating that in a sort of, the more sing-songy you do it, the better it is. But you'll find that after you do that for a few minutes, you sort of get into at least a neutral place, if not a happier place. So it's 999, 999, 999. And finally, when you feel really angry, an exercise that works that's a complementary one to the 999 is to flatten your hands by placing the palms of them on your thighs or on a desktop and make them as flat as you possibly can, because it's almost impossible to stay angry when your hands are completely unclenched.
Oh.
Now, I will say that again, for some who are having problems with arthritis, that may not work, but you can try to flatten them as much as is comfortable. Don't do it if it's painful, but try that and see how that helps. So let's go to our slide 14. And just as a kind of summing up, I wanted to just remind us that each of us is responsible for how we create and manage time, including during the holidays. And when we're experiencing grief or loss or less tangible feelings that nonetheless dampen our spirits, it's okay to acknowledge that we don't have a perfect response. How can we when all these things are new and often untested, as it were? So contrary to what the commercial world tells us, there's no magic bullet for this. But as Anne Lamott, writer and humorist, says, in the dark, there's still some light around. So don't ever think that things are too dark. More light may be on the way. But to see it, we have to open our eyes and our hearts. And that's something we can all work on. Joy is out there. And yes, it takes work to find it. And that, remember, when we look for it, we're probably going to find more than we expect. We have some tools to work with, and many of you, I'm sure, have others, or you will create others that will be effective for you. So don't stop being creative in how you use these tools or some others. There are a couple of resources that I will just mention here. And again, during the holidays, I'm seeing in the New York Times, the Washington Post, a number of our local news outlets are offering things, but there is a book by Dr. Carolyn that is called 101 Ways to Be Less Stressed. And there is another called The Happiness Trap by and then a third, which is called Self-Compassion by Dr. Kristen Neff. All of these have similar kinds of approaches to making sure that the more we help our own self-being, our own health, then the more equipped we're going to be a positive presence for others who may need that as well. So I'm going to stop there and see what your questions are. We can certainly go back to anything that I've already mentioned, but again, I hope a few of these are going to be helpful as you. We're already well into the holiday season, so again, these are not tools that have to be limited to holidays for sure.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions? I see a few things put in chat, but first, is there anyone who would like to raise their hand or just looking? I see. Peter, you're on. Unmute. Peter?
Yeah, I want to tell everyone that I think this 4 o'clock after the regular meeting may be a time for us to discuss personal thoughts about how things are happening in our lives and maybe connect to someone in that group that can help us, because we have a lot in common. And I agree with her speaker. I enjoyed her talk, but I want to be able to say how we can use that, what she's told us, between ours. And I'd like you to think about it. That's all.
Great. Yeah, good idea.
It's very good. And anyone else?
Bill, you might explain what he means by the time after.
Oh, I'm sorry. The time after from 4 to 4:30, we have overtime, which is on the agenda. And I'm sure, Peter, that's what you were trying to talk about, right? Overtime? Peter? Yes.
Yes.
Thumbs up.
He's
Okay,
unmuted.
Mike, you're on.
I think we tend to underestimate the amount of effort it would take to deal with the things that cause us anxiety, that cause us depression. When we talk about you gave a list of resources. In fact, I think in many cases, it turns out that there are a lot of things, especially trauma in our lives. And trauma comes in all sorts of ways. I had something very traumatic happen to me. I had a wonderful childhood. I had a wonderful experience, but something very traumatic, and I can look back at it now and really impacted me very much. And it was, I got labeled by psychiatrist as, oh, you've just got something wrong with your brain. And they never, ever, and I'm now talking 50 years later, none of them ever asked, what was it? What got you so upset? Why is it that you feel the way you feel? And the truth is that the medical profession, the insurance system, really isn't equipped or funded for the kind of in-depth conversations that it takes to really track down what it was way back when that's got you in the situation that you showed up as in a crisis, one severe crisis when I was 33 years old, that led to all kinds of medications, which means that right now I have kidney disease, all caused by that medication, all because the medical profession isn't equipped and our insurance system isn't equipped to really sit down and talk to you about what's going on, what's really going on. Why are you feeling so depressed? I ended up treating my depression by overeating and eating cookies and sodas, and that gave me peripheral neuropathy. So all my health conditions now I look back and I say, well, nobody ever asked me, what was it about your life to that situation? And even if they had asked, they wouldn't have been equipped back then. The insurance system would. They give you these 20 minutes this and a 20 minute that. But we don't have a society that's designed to actually deal with what goes wrong and how you are naturally reacting to these things that happen to you early in life. It's partly a comment, partly it's a question. I'm not sure how you want to react.
Yeah, and I would thank you for that, because I think you're right. I think one of the reasons that so many beneficial support groups have emerged, at least in this country, is partly related to that. And maybe I don't know, Mike. Maybe it's that our expectations of the healthcare system are unrealistic. But you're right. They are. That's not the place where some of the in-depth work is going to happen. And so, yeah, I'm sorry you've had such a tough go of it. I think looking for or finding, and sometimes it takes a while to find a support group or groups that are a right fit, but it seems like, at least for some people I know, it's worth the effort, because then at least you can find a few things to work on, not try to tackle it all because it's just too much.
Mike, does that answer your question?
Well, having a society that really recognizes that there are reasons why people are depressed,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to traditional think, oh, there's some kind of chemical imbalance in your brain, and we'll throw more chemicals at you, and more chemicals on top of that, in order to cure this chemical imbalance in your brain. Rather, it's so much harder to ask, really, what about your life? What happened?
Right. Yeah.
All right. Well, I see some hands up. Joanne.
Oh, she's muted.
You have to unmute.
Okay, there we go. And is there any evidence that things like yoga or massage or sort of hands-on things like that are helpful, immediately helpful, say during a stressful situation? Say I'm feeling really bad or stressed. Would it be good to have, say, a massage therapist available?
Yes, I think any of those, what I'd call body work, so whether it's massage or yoga, Tai Chi, and again, I think for people, there are things in that realm that will work for people regardless of your of physical limitations. We know that the hands-on work does help, and this is part of what I sort of see over time as a better blending of Eastern and Western healthcare, that there is more bringing in of some of those older Eastern practices, massage, yoga, Tai Chi, and many others in that continuum. So yes, very helpful. And I think that what some of us have learned is that, again, we kind of have to be our own best healthcare managers and pull from different traditions. Because as Mike said, what we don't want is to have people throwing more prescriptions at us. It's not just about taking more or different medications. It's about what balance for each of us seems to have the best effect. And I think that's, interestingly, one of the things we're learning from a lot more of the research around neuroplasticity. Our brains are much more capable of handling things than certainly when I was in nursing school. That things have come a long way in terms of what we know. So whatever we can do to keep all of those cells, our body, it's not just our brain, it's the cells in our whole bodies that we need to pay attention to. And so we've got to think of ourselves in a holistic way, not a one piece does all of it. And we've got some wonderful opportunities around here to either participate. There are a number of community recreation centers who are now offering some yoga and Tai Chi sessions, at least for beginners, free. And it's good to try things to see not everything works the same for everybody. So give them a try and see which is the best fit. But yes, definitely more data that point to the benefit of that.
Again, I appreciate that. Pat, do you have your hand up?
Hi, Ann. I have a couple of points, please. I was trying to include in the chat references that you made, and I got 101 ways to be less stressed and the self-compassion book. Could you tell me the title of the third one that you mentioned so I can include it?
Yes. So it's the other one was The Happiness Trap.
That's right. Okay.
How to Stop Struggling and Start Living by Russ, R-U-S-S, Harris, Harris.
Okay. And my other two questions or points are, I have a friend who's a recent widow, and I realized that on Nextdoor, which is an app that many people are subscribed to, they've recently asked, how do you find a grieving widows support group? It's a little scary to just Google it. How do you find a legitimate group? Do you have any suggestions?
I think a couple of places to check out are for people who are associated with a church or a synagogue or any sort of religious group. They often have those, offer them as part of what's broadly pastoral care. And then there are social workers who also seem to have pretty good access to what's working. And again, I would say for anything like that, I know sometimes there are people who go to a session, wherever it may be, and it doesn't quite work. And it's like, well, I tried that and it didn't work. Don't give up so easily. Try it. Try a few different groups, and usually over the course of trying several, something will click really well. But don't be discouraged if the first time, and for some people the first time is all it takes, but if it doesn't, don't give up and say, well, I tried that and it didn't work. Be that kitten looking like the lion who says, I'm going to be a persistent advocate for myself and find something that will work.
Okay. And my third point is, I recently had an email from someone who had attended a support group meeting and felt that that it really didn't help. In fact, it countered and triggered more anxiety in her because she heard all these stories and she was discouraged that there was no cure. And she wondered if there was anything an opportunity to have a meditation session at the end of these support group meetings. And clearly that could be done during our, what we call overtime, if people wanted to generate that kind of support for each other. But I wondered if you had a comment on that idea of triggering more anxiety than actually finding it helpful.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry she had that experience, and I think it is important to have a, you know, for all of these things, we need someone who's a trained, experienced facilitator, because you can have the, what I would call the science skills, but if you don't have those facilitation skills, then you gotta have both, I think. Yeah. Yeah, the last thing you want is for people to finally have the courage to come, and then they have a bad experience. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Jed, I see you have your hand up, boss. So I've got 3 o'clock on the for a break, and I'm just wondering if we take a 5-minute break and then come back, and hope Ann can stay with us, and there may be a few more questions, but I think it's time to stand up and stretch and do what we do best. And I'll see you in
Sounds
about,
good.
I've got 3:02 now, so we'll come back at 3:07.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
And yeah, thank you.
Okay, Ann, can you
Yep.
stay around?
I'll be happy to.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
All right.
I'm gonna be counting to 9.
3 times.
That's right.
Very cute, Santa Claus.
If you got it, flaunt it, I always say.
I love your background too. You've got the Christmas tree with the
Yes,
deer.
yes,
Perfect.
yes.
Looks like
Oh,
a
well.
postcard.
Yeah, I wouldn't want you to think that it's the real thing. It's just, one of those. one of those green screen pictures.
That's
But
great.
yeah, I'm getting the mood, right? Bill, I don't have any music for you.
Well, that's okay. Oh, Santa, how you doing? Hey, look.
Yeah, I know. You wore the red. You got the
Yeah, I
color.
should have worn my reindeers.
So did Ann.
Oh, okay, I got one more minute and then we'll go.
A little
Did
serenade.
you- Sorry, I missed that.
Man, I didn't know you were a musician.
Was that a
We had our Christmas
kazoo?
party.
Is that a kazoo?
That is a kazoo. One must always have a kazoo handy.
Well, I'm sure I'm glad you joined the
Like-
group today because we can always use a little kazoo.
I withdraw my remark that we don't have any music.
All right,
Where are the dancers?
they're behind the Christmas tree.
Hard to fit them in the screen.
They're getting dressed for the finale. All right, I got 3:07 and we're back on air and Judd or Santa, did you have a question?
Yes, I laughed when Ann said, I have 5 minutes for your rant session as a means of limiting. I wanted to see if you were saying that the way I took it, because I got a couple of family members that I could really use that on. Could you say a little bit more about that?
Yes, I know that in some of the community work I've done and others as well, I certainly don't want to take credit for it all. We've done something which we call, ask someone to be your venting partner. And the idea is, you can be just mad as a hatter about something, and you just need to get it off your chest. And it's not enough to sort of talk to yourself at home or whatever. You just need somebody to listen, a real human being. But to be sure that if that's something that is a possible tactic, that there are boundaries around it. So really, it's okay. I'll be your venting partner for 5 minutes, or 5 minutes is quite a long time. So you might even want it to be 2 or 3. And then when the time's up, the time's up. So it's not intended to say, well, I didn't really mean 5, for the person who's doing the venting. It's like, you have to stop when time is up. And it can be very, we've used it in workplaces, very effective to keep somebody from blowing their top. Let's say, well, do you need a venting partner for a minute or 5 minutes of work? And again, something like singing the 9999s is another way to do that. But the venting partners is pretty effective. And we've had situations in which there has been a real workplace situations where there's been a real movement toward almost a violent blow up, in which having a venting partner made the difference. It allows somebody to sort of just dial down and feel like they're being heard. The person who is the partner who's doing the listening has to be actively listening. You can't be checking your phone or going through files. You have to be on. But it can be a very, very effective technique.
And then how do you close it off at the end of the 5 minutes?
You just say the time's up, time's up. And if you have to put your timer on to make that work, that's very important, because if it becomes just limitless, then you've both kind of lost the whole point of it. The point of it is defuse a situation, but not in a way that either the listener or the talker goes on for hours and hours. Has to have those limits around it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, are there any other questions for Ann? Pat, I'm looking at the chat and most of it is about the books, the associations. Do you see any questions in the chat?
No, I did not see questions. It was more recording some of the resources that Ann was referencing. But I do see that Mike has his hand up.
Mike, you got 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
Yeah,
You mean for my soapbox or something else?
soapbox,
Rant.
Not
your
so-
rant.
This is not my usual rant. That we'll have to reserve that for later in the meeting, when we have time.
Yeah, well, we'll do that in overtime, so go ahead.
This is actually a question or comment. I think as a society, we tremendously underestimate the effect of trauma. That's my comment. And I'm wondering if Anne could address the feeling of shame that typically attaches to someone who has suffered trauma, and hence their reluctance to talk about it. And perhaps maybe that is the reason, as a society, we don't really understand how much trauma there really is, and the degree to which we should be concerned about it in the society as a whole. Shame.
Yeah, well, I would say that, and again, this is going to be a gross overgeneralization, so apologies for that, that we are, our primary culture is one in which we don't yet have very good rituals for addressing shame or trauma. And so our tendency broadly is to either ignore it and hope it'll just go away. We don't want to talk about it. It's kind of like sex and taxes. And so what gives me hope, Mike, is that I do feel that there are more groups who are recognizing all kinds of trauma that people have experienced, and the importance of creating safe spaces to talk about it, and then tools to address it, to manage it. I would recommend the book I mentioned early on, The Body Keeps the Score, because he talks quite a bit about trauma in that. And the price we've paid culturally for not addressing it, or wanting to be kind of superficial in how we address it, is that we have created a situation in which there are many physical illnesses that happen because our bodies are going to find a way to deal with it when we can't talk about it, or when it's shameful. So I'm very optimistic that we are moving in a positive direction, in having more resources of all kinds to deal with all kinds of trauma, because trauma is not the same. You've mentioned that already. And it doesn't work to say, well, I'm sorry you had the trauma, get over it. That's kind of the broad approach. But having said that, there are many groups that are working hard to try to find spaces, safe spaces, and people who will listen, who will allow us to tell our stories in a way that helps us to mend. And mending doesn't mean that we forget the trauma. By and large, it doesn't go away. We learn how to live with it, as it were, in a healthier way. But it's a big piece of the mental health issues that we hear so much about in the news. Yeah.
Bill, there are two comments in the chat. Ann Stillwell, would you like to ask your question directly to Ann? The difference between venting?
Sure. I have lots of friends that want to vent to me. And at some point, they just keep venting and venting day after day after day with the same complaints or another complaint. Or, it's childhood friends that I have now. How do you redirect it so that I'm not a counselor? You know what I mean? So how do you kindly say, I can't do this anymore?
Mhm.
I would like you to stop doing this to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, actually, and I think both of those are pretty good ways to address it. I mean, I think again, many of us have grown up or either are in helping professions or have grown up, whether you're in helping professions or not, to believe that we are responsible for everybody's happiness, that we're supposed to be givers. And while there is truth in that, it doesn't mean that you erase yourself in order for that to happen. And so I think it's very hard work. I was just talking with someone yesterday about the hard work of setting and maintaining boundaries, because, we don't want people to think we're uncaring. But I think to say, it sounds like for all the time we've spent on this topic, you need to find a counselor, or let me help you find a counselor. Here are some people who could help you with this in a different way. Otherwise, it will continue. There will be no end to it. And that, you're right, that is not the same. Venting is really for an immediate situation where blood pressures are about to explode or already exploding, something fairly short term. But the person who keeps coming back, and we all have someone like that in our lives, I suspect, they're going to keep coming back because nobody has put any limits on that. So, and it's not easy work. I don't want to make it sound like it's just a matter of just do it once. It's going to require doing it over and over long enough for the person to really get in his or her head, she's not going to keep doing this. I'm going to have to find somebody else.
All right, I call those boomerang friends. They keep coming back.
Yeah.
All right, Shauna, you got your hand up. Go ahead.
I've actually fortunately had to deal with that kind of situation before that you were talking about. I don't know, it looks like they might have left. Oh no, you didn't. Oh, there we go. I see you now. And I've had to deal with that situation before, and one of the things I ended up saying to that person was, hey, we keep, talking about the same issue. I've given what suggestions I have available, but I'm not able to talk about this anymore. It's starting to cause me distress. Can I recommend someone to talk to this about, maybe a counselor? I have some great resources. And that was a great start. And if they continued to try to come back and rant about it again, it was, hey, I already told you I can't talk about this. That's for me, this is too much. Please, I can't. And that was all I had to leave it at, because either you're gonna respect my boundary of, hey, this is not for me, this is not something I can handle. You're gonna find a solution, whatever else, you're gonna accept the help that I can give you, or maybe we discuss what kind of friendship and acquaintanceship we have going forward, because you can't respect that boundary. Another thing too is, even at the beginning, with if you are looking to do this sort of just vents, just these quick short vents, not a continued problem like that, even saying, hey, if we're going to do this, I can only maybe do, one a week.
Right.
And, I always have the right to decline. You can always say no. If somebody starts to vent to you, if somebody says, can I? Hey, I can't handle this. Hey, not right now. I'm sorry. That's it.
Absolutely spot on. And I would just add to what you said. I think you're spot on with all of that. That if the person comes back and you say, well, I can't keep doing this, another thing to sometimes ask is, did you check out any of the resources I gave you? 99% of the time, the answer is going to be no, I didn't, because I thought I could keep coming back to you. And so until we say, no, you've exhausted everything I have to offer, you got to try a new resource, then it's going to keep going on. Yeah.
Great points. Joanne, go ahead.
Okay, I recently heard a speaker and then bought her book, and I thought it was interesting in that the subtitle, the book's called The Power of Meaning, but the subtitle is Finding Fulfillment in a World Obsessed with Happiness. And it goes into what gives a person's life meaning. And she identifies three or four things. One is belonging,
Mhm.
feeling like you belong to a group, purpose, storytelling, figuring out what your story is, and then transcendence, having some sort of spiritual life that is part of your being. So anyway, I found this book very interesting, and it's by Emily Smith.
Okay. What's the title, Joanne?
I'll put it in the chat.
Okay,
The Power of Meaning.
okay. Yeah, I
All right, Mike,
think
Mike,
again,
I see your hand up, but can we wait for overtime for it? Mike, I want to just check on any other people who would like to ask a question. Peter, Peter, got your hand up?
I just wanted to get Glenn to expand on his comment that people differ in how they can handle trauma. Everybody has trauma. I think my comment my response to Glenn is that we encourage everybody to think of them as the Marlboro man who can handle anything, and we're all expected to do it on our own. And I want to push back that we're not all Marlboro men, and depending on the nature of trauma and the nature of how we are built inside, it may the damage may come out in ways that Lan was referring to. May come out in physical ways because we didn't handle it correctly. We didn't get the help that should have been there. Anyway.
yeah, and again, it's never too late. You know, all of us are on our own journeys, and we keep trying different things, try different paths to see what works. But as I said before, it's not. I think and again, there are so many subcultures within our culture that are doing some really creative and positive things that I don't want to end by making it sound as though there's no redeeming grace in the culture. But I think we do hear it's part of this media blast that we should all be ecstatically happy all the time. And there's a big difference between happiness and what I would call deep gladness, which is a sort of more transcendent kind of thing. So we don't have to buy into any of that, but we have to be our own advocates and our own managers to sort of figure out what is a happy life for me, what is a meaningful life for me, and it's not going to be the same as for someone else. So don't buy into that, or do what you can to avoid buying into that. If it doesn't look like this, then it's not okay, you know.
Okay, Pat, you go ahead.
I think I'll just make a quick comment. I think part of the problem has been historically the whole mental health treatment stigma, that people have been unwilling to accept the idea or the need for treatment or pursue it, even though they would take the pill for their blood pressure or they would see the doctor for their kidney problem or whatever. If it came to something that was related to emotional or mental health, they were less willing because of the stigma. And hopefully that's beginning to be eased, as you're saying, with all of these more optimistic, you're more optimistic now that there are people creating safe havens and such. But I still think it's out there. You don't talk. You readily talk at the Thanksgiving table about what your latest blood test revealed, or what doctor's appointment you're going to next. But it's always about the physical illness, not the emotional illness. And I hope that eases, because I think that has been a factor.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Very good. Any other questions for Ann? Anything in the chat, Pat, that you see? Anything new?
No, I think Glenn surprisingly has not spoken today. He's only written.
Well,
I'm-
Glenn is learning how to play the kazoo.
Oh, okay.
We do not, he's banned from playing. If he wants to talk, that's wonderful, but no kazoo.
Okay.
Glenn, do you have any comments?
Well, Glenn has also been told that he speaks too much in support group meetings, so I'm trying to like come back, wind that down a little bit. But from a psychological perspective, part of the commentary that I was throwing in there was that we're a very unusual civilization, America in particular, but most of the English-speaking world and much of Western civilization has had the historical anomaly over the last several centuries of really putting individual happiness as a primary goal. This is unusual historically. It's certainly not been the case with a lot of other cultures and a lot of other historical periods. So we may have really high expectations that we're almost all doomed to not meet. I guess that comes down, to switching Bobby McFerrin around and saying, don't worry about being happy. Because most of us live in the end, I think, for joy, for peak experiences. The possibility of having overall a satisfactory life is not that high because, first of all, existentially, we're all aware we're all going to die one day. So that puts a damper on things to begin with. So the idea is to live for the peak experiences and don't worry so much about providing a value judgment, especially any value judgments that are based upon other people's value judgments or comparisons in terms of living a happy life.
There you go.
Yeah, and I would say that moving into a place of wisdom helps us to reconfigure how we see the world in that regard. Yeah, because it's so that it's not just peak experiences, it is something just to use the power of meaning word it's more transcendent. But that's again part of the longer term journey. But I think we are starting to see more of the blending of cultures than we have in the past. That doesn't mean we don't have a very long way to go, but at least it's out there. There are more, perhaps more options, or it appears there are more options.
Susan, you have a comment about people venting without warning that you would like to share?
Yes, I do. I'm sorry, my camera doesn't work right now, but I was with a friend who often has a lot of concern. She's in a difficult situation, and I'm usually try to be supportive, and but one time recently, she just started screaming at me, and it was unsettling. And then she got through, and she said, "I just had to vent." And it seemed to me like maybe she does that with her therapist or something, because she didn't ask permission or warn me, and I felt it like a mini attack. I still like this person very much and value her friendship, but I'm thinking I should go back and tell her the effect that had on me. It was a very unpleasant experience. If she had just said, "Could I vent with you for a minute, because I'm really, really upset," and I had said, and I had said yes, I would have been prepared for it, but it was not something I would want to happen again.
I think it would be a great gift to her to do exactly what you just said, to go back and tell her how it made you feel, because she probably hasn't thought about that.
Yes, I thought that would be a good friendship to not just let it stay out there.
Something a good friend would do, because if she's doing it to other people, they may be less compassionate than you are in dealing with it.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions for Ann? Anything in the chat? I think so. All right, Shauna, you hand up?
What, out of curiosity, Anne, is there a specific form of talk therapy that you have seen be more beneficial if if any, and not to say that there's any that isn't beneficial, because obviously just starting to talk about whatever's going on is a great step. I'm curious if you've seen any that are more beneficial for things like neuropathy, where oftentimes, as was kind of mentioned earlier, that there is difficulty in most cases with getting, having issues with progression and things like that. I know for myself, I found more DBT, but I'm curious kind of what you as more of a clinician have seen.
Yeah, I don't think there is a single best approach to that. I think the first thing is to get to know the person or the group, and then see what can work. It's really about learning more about people's stories, and then finding those intersections that are beneficial. So I don't think there's a single one that I would recommend over others. I think it's an effective group is going to be one in which people take the time to listen carefully to one another's stories. That doesn't mean that everybody gets to go on for, days and weeks about it, but to say here, and that does require making sure there's a safe space for that, because I know for many people who have had trauma and neuropathy related to chronic trauma, it takes a while to believe there are safe spaces. So that's a whole other issue. Yeah. I'm not sure if that completely answered your question, but I think I would say if you're working with a group or exploring a group where it feels like there's time being allowed for weaving those stories together, and then figuring out how together do our stories, our combined stories, help us to move forward. That would be, I would say that would be a good place to start. Yeah.
All right, any other questions or comments? I see a thank you. Okay.
Well, I also want to say thank you. This has been such a lovely opportunity, and I'm so impressed with what you're doing as this group. And so just, again, when you're having a day that seems kind of tough, think, well, this is one place, where you have support, and you're helping one another to be as whole as you can be. And that's pretty special.
All right, before I let you go, I see Ann, you got your hand up.
No, I took it down. I wanted to clap for her. Thank you.
Thanks.
And I want to thank you for speaking to us today, because I certainly learned a lot, because I've been a venting partner for a few people that I know. And I find that family members are the worst, but also I think it's you gave me a great idea of, I'm just going to say, look, here's some people you ought to talk to. Here's a book you ought to read.
Right.
And if they keep calling me in, I said, I'm going to start saying, have you read the book, or have you seen Dr. So-and-so? No, I don't need to. I'm perfect. I'll just say, well, talk to you later. Goodbye. But anyway, okay, Pat.
I'd just like to reiterate our thanks to Ann for agreeing first to address us today, but also for agreeing to let us record it and share her slides, because it's so important. Part of what the Peripheral Neuropathy Support Network is about is sharing these kinds of resources. And so we totally appreciate your willingness to, as I said, record it and share the information. I'm even thinking of holiday gifts for some of these books. So
yeah, good idea.
People who might be needing it. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I'm looking around. I don't think we have any new attendees today. So what I'm going to do is turn the, and you can stay on and listen, or you can
I'm going to pop off to another event I need to go to, but again, thank you so much for
certainly appreciate your time.
To be here.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay, Santa, you're up.
All right. Let me share a slide here. I just want to take a few minutes and plug the website and just
Later.
do a little.
Later when I offer food.
That's Mike. Mike, you're in the background there. I wanted to just do a little quick tour of our website just to let everybody know. We this time we did post the invitation on our Facebook page, the On Your Feet, and just let people come in. Normally we say we need for you to join. But if you didn't join, if you just got on through a link, you really need to join. It's absolutely free. And to be a member is you'll be able to get invitations to this kind of meeting as well as other things too, and then access the website through the Facebook page as well as just generically, and that will give you access to various webinars and other meetings such as Western Neuropathy webinars around the country, and it's just a good thing to do, to go ahead and join. And I don't know if Rebecca's having some trouble. She's our treasurer. I see her getting on and off involuntarily, I think, and she's having some trouble with her computer, but I'll speak up for her. We thought about, do we need a year-end giving ask? And we thought, no, we don't, because we've got money in the bank, and we just wanted to let people bask in that a little bit and celebrate. So, but if you're so inclined, if you just believe you'd like to help us out, you can go on the homepage right up there. I'm showing you the homepage right now. So if you go to donate, you can use our online giving tool, and it takes your credit card for any amount. And then if you don't like that, you can, there's Rebecca's address on that page, and you can just send her a check if you want to. Anyway, this is the homepage, and it stresses basically that we want to be a resource for us out here. And somebody said recently on our page, the experiences I've had with the PN support group have been life-changing. I've been more anxious, much more anxious and lost feeling if I didn't have the good experiences I found in the PN support network. That's just what one person said. Other people have said to us that this has been a useful group to them. And of course, we are always wanting feedback with both on the website as well as in these meetings. And so we will be posting, well, let me just show you a couple of things here. First of all, you can go to the calendar, and the calendar will show you various things coming up. Right now, it's pretty slim. We hadn't done anything in the new year. So, and this will disappear right after this meeting is over. So, and then we will start with the new year with various meetings that you can attend, or webinars, or whatever we're promoting. And then if you go to up here, Pat tells me I go too fast. I'm going to slow down. Events and meetings. And then what I really want to talk about is past meetings. Right here. No, never mind. No, that's not it. If we go here and we go to past meetings, I think I'm going to rename this because that's not very instructive at this point. But anyway, you can go back a ways and find recaps of meetings we have had in the past. And many times the video is there, but even if it's not, we try to save various elements such as the chat session and summaries of the meetings so that you can go back and kind of recap. In this case, we're going to post a PDF of the slideshow that Ann presented today, as well as the chat session and anything else we feel would be helpful. The list of books is real good, Pat. That was great. And I thought holiday gifts is a good idea. So anyway, that's my little part. I wanted to, just plug it one more time.
All right, that's
Happy
good. That's good. It's Christmas time. It's time to, well, anyway, okay, Pat, we'll go to closing remarks and then we can hit overtime a little bit sooner and we'll do what Peter Coro said.
Okay, excuse me, Bill, it's
Oh.
Rebecca.
Oh, you're back.
Well, I have been, sorry,
Uh-oh.
Oh, she's gone.
No, she's not.
I turned the other computer off. I have been getting bumped off this all time. I don't know what's going on. Mike suggested maybe I should reboot my Zoom, and I'll do that as soon as I'm off this and get my husband up here.
Well, you better talk fast.
Folks, that's why I've been in and out of here all day. I'm sure I'm making Judd crazy trying to get back on it all the time. And thank you. If anybody wants to make a donation for the end of the year, send it on. Thank you before I get booted off again.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, Pat, you're up.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm just going to give us a bit of a wrap up to remind everyone. Can you show the slide, Judd, the wrap up slide?
Yes.
There we go. I just wanted to make sure that you knew that both the Pittsburgh and the Bethesda Chevy Chase support groups will not be meeting in December. No December meeting for those two groups. And I'll ask Glenn if you have any reference to the Western Neuropathy Association groups in December, or Shauna.
Yeah, we are actually doing the second Saturday of the month, next Saturday, one which I can certainly send out links if anybody wants. We do tend to run a little bit less of a schedule in December, but Shauna, I can speak to this too. I believe that their autoimmune group on the third Wednesday is still running. Is that correct?
Yeah, we're still going. So, and I'll put those dates down in the chat real quick as well, just to make it a little easier.
We can add them to the calendar. Yeah.
And again, we have to remind you that the best resource is our website. It has the calendar for other people's support group meetings beyond just the DC Virginia group. And which brings us to our January 6th meeting, a nice segue to Ann's presentation today. The focus in January is an open discussion, but with a focus on positivity, looking at maybe some of the positive things that have evolved from your peripheral neuropathy experience. Maybe you learned a new hobby, like Greg Masson. He couldn't ride a standard bike anymore, so he trained himself on an e-bike and took that amazing journey across country. Maybe you've learned, as I said, a new hobby, or you've volunteered in a new place that you might not have known about or supported before. So in January, on our January 6th, 2:00 meeting, we will be focusing on starting the new year with an element of positivity. The third point I wanted to mention was the opportunity to subscribe to Brain and Life magazine. brainandlife.org, or you can call that number to subscribe. It is free. It's well worth taking the minute it takes to subscribe to it. There is a reference to peripheral neuropathy this month on weather and the factor of weather in chronic illnesses, including peripheral neuropathy, how it's aggravated by the coldness. So you might look at that particular article, or simply read the entire very informative magazine. And as I said, you can get a digital copy, or they will mail you a print copy. one other thing that we wanted to try today, thanks to Catherine Stenzel and the Western Neuropathy Association, Bill Porter had mentioned that they use an exit survey to sort of gauge the response to a particular meeting and learn from it. And so we are going to implement that and try it for the first time today. So when you leave, an exit survey will pop up. If you do nothing more, give us a 1 through 5 response on the meeting. How helpful was it? 1 being not helpful, 5 being very helpful. And then the other, Bill is commenting by hand signals. Bill, do you have something to add?
No, I'm saying 5.
Oh,
We
give
want
everybody give us a 5. No, then there are 2 other questions that are short answer, and it says they're required, but if you don't have the time to answer them, though we'd certainly love your response, you can just do the first question that gave us an indication of your response to today's meeting. And I think that, other than to say happy holidays, whatever you celebrate in the winter season, and we look forward to seeing you in January. We will be turning this over now to what we call our follow-up time, our 4 p.m. plus overtime. That is not recorded, so if you have concerns about privacy or feel uncomfortable speaking to the larger group, this is a way to connect to maybe someone that you heard from in the chat or heard from in their speaking today, and it gives you a chance to follow up with them directly. The last thing is, if you are on a laptop, if you are in chat, if you open up the chat, there are a series of icons at the very bottom, one of which is the 3 dots, the ellipse. If you click on that, it will say save chat. It is saved in a Zoom folder on your local computer. You can click on today's date and rename it so you can find it again. You can put Ann Wilson's name on it to give you a hook or a reminder. If you're on the phone, on your iPhone, it is a file. You click on file, save chat, in the same situation. But if you don't know how to do that or don't want to take the time now, the chat will always be posted in our past meetings. After today, today's meeting will be a past meeting. Okay, I think that's
Okay,
everything.
before I declare overtime, I always give my famous little sayings. Motion is lotion, rest is rust. And then also, if you start to exercise, go slow, go low. And if you can't stand up and you got to sit down, sit and be fit. Anyway.
I love it. Thank you, Bill. And that goes to Shauna's reference to seated yoga. There is no excuse to say you can't do any movement, because you can. And seated yoga is one. And then we also have exercises posted, a little cheat sheet that physical therapists gave us that give you seated exercises, even moving your ankles and feet, well worth it.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to declare now we go into overtime. And for those, Peter, you're going to be the first one to speak. So I declare overtime, and it starts right now. Oh,
Bye,
Samson,
all.
your
I know.
hands up.
Where's that kazoo?
No, no kazoo. Kazoos are out. All right, Peter. Peter.
Where's Peter?
Peter.
He's
talking. I got
You
to
gotta talk.
Yeah,
Peter.
he's there.
I'm here.
We're in overtime. Let's go.
Okay.
You're up.
Well, what I want to mention is I used to be the one yelling, shouting on this program, and Mike knows it in the beginning. And we used to pound my hands on the desk at the Lamb Center. I was just one of those people that you're talking about. But I know that was when I was on a mode of really frustration. I got out of that mode, thank God, or whoever it is. But my problem right now is I have cataracts, had taken one lens, they put a lens in there, but the only thing I can see is that one eye is distance, and I can't see very well anything else. And it's gonna last like for 2 months, one for one eye and then the next for the other eye. So my real frustration is not only that, but I also have something that I cannot take bowel movements anymore, and it has something to do with the lower vertebrae, and that could lead to bad news. So I'm very frustrated, and I'm not going to get upset, but I think this is a time for individuals like me can express personally without thinking about bugging other people what they really think about what's going on in their lives. So I opened it up to all of you to think that way.
All right, any responses to help Peter?
I for one always enjoyed his rant. I never used to rant until I started listening to Peter.
He showed us how.
Thank you.
Well, Peter, I certainly hope your eye surgeon is helping you with your cataract situation. That
Yes,
seems unusual. At least most of my friends have loved their surgery and felt it really helped.
Yeah, okay, thank you. But I'm curious if anyone else thinks the way that I do in a way, and I like to use this time for those individuals that really don't say much during the meeting because maybe for some reasons or not, to understand this is the time you can, express what you, because we're on the same boat with neuropathy. And as one person thought said, neuropathy won't kill you. However, if I can't go to the bathroom, that will kill me. So that can kill you, neuropathy. So I don't want to put fear in you, but if I'm thinking that way, you must understand why I'm concerned. And I like this outlet part where we can talk to each other about our situations.
Peter, personally, I think you may want to talk to a colon rectal
Yeah,
specialist
right, I will. Thanks.
and take Fibercon, which I do, and it helps.
Oh, let me write that down.
Fibercon.
I just wanted to point out that if I don't get off this call pretty soon, my wife is going to have to practice Ann's recommendations
That feels good, though.
to deal with the anger.
That feels good.
I don't see much anger there. She is giving you a massage and patting you on the head, and smiling. So
Yes, but there is a certain amount of timing element that she is encouraging me to.
Is she available for rental is the real question.
Now, we can't go that far. None of that. We don't want to start rumors.
goodness.
I would, in all seriousness, love to find a good masseur or masseuse somewhere that I could go to regularly, because I think it would be very, very helpful. I do tend to have muscles that tighten up, even with the magnesium that I take. And of course, as many of you know, I'm the original weightlifting, whatever's worth doing is worth overdoing. And, I was fortunate that prior to COVID, I had a very, very good physical therapist who was working on me each week. But that, of course, ended with COVID, and they're no longer there. And it may take a long time to find somebody who is equally skilled and knowledgeable.
Mm-hmm. True.
Well, I spent my life sitting in chairs in front of keyboards and developed sacroiliac joint problems. So as much as I have one of these big, tall walking sticks instead of canes, so that I try to stay upright. But when the sacroiliac starts yelling at me in the morning, I start to find myself bending over. Oh, Peter, we're gonna have to start a collection of all the things we want to whine about.
Well, the best way to do is come over a couple of beers with me.
I wonder if Scott is still on, Scott Dine. We haven't heard from you today, or Samantha Fields. I'm not sure if they have anything that they'd like to add, if they're still on.
Well, I don't have a rant.
Oh, good.
So that's good.
And I learned by listening, and that's why I'm here. And I have learned a lot. I'm beginning to realize that this disease of peripheral neuropathy the treatment varies considerably, and that nobody really knows a lot about it, and that I've tried to adjust to those sort of unknown factors and go about my business. And you have been a big help to me in that respect.
When were you diagnosed, Scott?
About, well, actually, I probably have had it for a long time, didn't realize it. It began to get advanced about 6 or 7 years ago. And it has really advanced in the last couple of years. Advanced from the point of being able to walk okay, but slowly, and now needing a cane, having to be very, very careful, feeling off balance. I think all the things I've heard here, no sense in going on with it. The thing I'm trying to pin down now is learn more about the weather and how much of an effect that has on things, if it does, or if it's understood. Essentially, just keep learning.
I have a comment in response. We had a gentleman who owns the Mobility City store in Alexandria lead two of us on a tour of his store. And I learned so much about accessibility devices and such from him. And this, by the way, is recorded and on the website as well. But anyway, he showed me something that I'm actually considering buying. It is a, I don't know what you would call it, a support pole, I guess, that you can put between your toilet and your tub, and it moves very easily. So if you're in the tub, you can use it to get out. You can use it to get out for support, or you can turn it and it's facing your toilet. And so then you can use it for getting up and down easier. I thought it was amazing. It's sort of like a tall walking stick, but it just pops up into the ceiling and on the floor, and then it was amazing to me. So there's so much out there that we don't even realize, like a shelf for your rollator, so that you can bring your dinner into the living room or the family room where you're watching TV, and you're not trying to balance that and move your rollator. There is actually a tray that you can slip on. We probably should have him come again, because there are a lot of tools out there that I had no idea about. A little table that slips under your mattress, and you have it right there at your bed for either snacks or drinking or books or whatever. But I was really intrigued. I had tried a walking stick for the first time and realized that I liked it so much better than a cane. Now, I'm not at that point where I'm using either of them, but regularly. But after my back surgery, it was really helpful. So there are things out there that we should know about and could be using perhaps to help with our balance issues and our stability. So thank you for sharing, Scott.
You're welcome.
Okay, Samantha, did you have some words for us?
Yeah, first, just thanks for letting me be here today. And I just want to, I have been saying to people constantly, I wish there was a assistive aid device store that I could go to check everything out. I had no idea that there actually are some.
It's a wonderful store. And the thing about, the reason I say that is you can rent the equipment or buy it. And he actually, if you hear of another device that somebody else you know is using, he will order it for you. He's just amazing. I'll have to get it. I'll put it in the chat if I can find it quickly.
Please do. Yeah.
But it is in Alexandria.
Because that's where I'm at with all of this right now, is needing assistive devices for everything and not knowing where to turn or where to go. And I've just started attending some support groups for that kind of information because I just don't know. You know, usually
he actually sits down and interviews you and walks you around the store, and you find things that you didn't, as I said, even know existed. So he might be well worth making an appointment, or I would say an appointment. Then if there's other customers, you have his attention. But it's Mobility City, and I'm putting it in now.
Great, thank you.
Oh, they even come to your house. I forgot. They will. They have a van that will bring equipment to your house.
I wonder about driving. If I have given up on driving for the last few months because of the numbness. I wonder if that's happened to other people.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Are you in this local area?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fairfax.
Yeah, there's one very near you, actually. It's in Chantilly. Very good. They didn't actually make the equipment that I have, but they were very helpful. There is stuff to learn about that. I don't give up driving. That's a living in the United States. That's a big thing to give up.
Tell me about it.
Yeah. There are options that you would be surprised about. If your hands are still working okay?
Yeah, they're fine.
Yeah, then, so I have hand controls in my car. I've had them now for about 4 or 5 years. And you know, it's amazing. They've got things where if you only have one hand, I mean, it's just all kinds of disabilities. Giving up driving is giving up a hell of a lot. Don't give it up. Don't give up without a fight.
Okay.
Driving Rehabilitation Center of Excellence, I think is the name of it. But anyway, it's in Chantilly. If you Google driving driving controls or hand controls, and they'll pop up.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I mean, and they're very good. This lady was she was a officer, colonel or something in the Army, and she specialized in helping veterans until she retired to become drivers again. And she carries that same service attitude towards anybody who walks in the door.
Okay, thank you. I'll try to find it.
Okay, are there any other questions during open overtime?
I'd like to say something.
Yes, ma'am.
Susan, I really want to thank you, Joanne. Is Joanne still here?
I don't think so.
Oh, well, anyway, I really liked her book recommendation, and I think I'm going to make a present of that book to myself.
Good.
That was really great. And I I've been trying to find I'm very, very lucky because my pain is in remission, and I feel so fortunate. But I've been thinking about doing climate change things to, what can I do to create more meaning in my life? And I've switched to an electric power mower, and I'm switching to an electric stove, and I really want to do something that helps. I think that climate change stuff can help, but I think that book is just probably going to be wonderful. And I also feel very, very fortunate because I've had so much help from you guys. I've had trouble with my computer, trouble getting on the meetings, and Pat, you reached out to me, and then Mike practically held my hand across the internet to make sure that I got on this, sent out the link early to make sure it was going to work for me. And Mike, that's just invaluable. Makes such a difference. So it's a good group, and I'm really glad to see you all.
I'm so glad you rejoined us, Susan. I was afraid that you had escaped to the Maryland group and we wouldn't see you back, but I'm very pleased to have you.
Now, this is my home group.
Yeah, I know.
Maryland's good too.
Shauna, thank you for the sit to stand, floor to ceiling poll. I could not imagine the name of it, and I wasn't describing it very well, but it really is very useful poll and inexpensive. You don't need anybody to install it. It has the spring mechanism that just fits ceiling to floor. Well worth it.
And for Samantha, I put Pat put the name of the store in the chat, and I put the video where she took the tour of the store. So if
good, thank you.
Follow up on those, you can see all that.
Okay, are there any other comments in overtime?
Let me just share one adventure that I'm in the midst of.
We got 5 minutes, Mike, so you get 1 minute.
Thinking about getting shoulder replacement surgery, maybe in both shoulders at the same time. I don't know. I'm terrified of losing my ability to walk during the rehabilitation process. I have no idea how to keep my leg strength up during what was probably, I don't know, 6 to 8 weeks of relative immobility. I use, because I have very little strength in my legs, I use my arms, I use my shoulders for just about everything. And the doctor said, well, sometimes, we get in there and we start poking around and we decide between a reverse shoulder and a regular shoulder replacement, depending on the situation. I said, well, if it's a reverse shoulder, you're limited to like 10 pounds. You just can't put much weight on the arm at all with a reverse shoulder surgery. And I said that basically makes me a quadriplegic, just about, because I wouldn't be able to do much of anything. I would never be able to get up off the floor if I fell. And of course, I fall all the time on my pads, which I've advertised. And so I'm really in the midst of a puzzlement about whether I should get this surgery or not. So anybody who has any wise words, speak up. Yeah.
I'll speak up and say usually doctors will say whether you're able to have this surgery and recover from it. I mean, most doctors say, yes, go ahead. And those who say no, they tell you, no, we can't help you. But I mean, that's the doctor's advice. I would get 2 opinions personally.
I about did it in 2020, and I had developed skin cancer where they needed to cut, and I delayed it. And while I was delaying it, the pain went back to not very much at all. And so I didn't have the surgery back then. But now it's back again, and now I'm trying to decide what to do. So I don't know. The pain will go
Any
away.
answers for, any responses to Mike, Shona? You have your
Well,
hand
yes,
up?
yes. I wonder, Mike, have you talked with the doctor about having physical therapy during your recuperation of your legs? You might be able to have a visiting physical therapist come and help you go through exercises to strengthen your legs. I know even in my exercise class I do over Zoom, we do a few leg strengthening exercises. And my sister, who's going for physical therapy in a physical therapy center, is doing some of the same exercises that I'm doing. So you might only need a few visits from the physical therapist, and then you could be doing it on your own. I mean, maybe that would help you deal with the surgery.
Good point. Shona. Yeah, hand up.
I've got
Good.
kind of 2 points with this. So one bounces off what Susan just said, and even before you have it, asking a PT, hey, how would you recommend I go about this if I am to have, the shoulder surgery? What kinds of things can I do to adapt my everyday living to make this manageable? I didn't have shoulder surgery, but I had a wonderful ORIF from a bad fracture, and so I had a nerve block in my arm. And because of that, did some more reading later on. It's not great to have nerve injections. It's not great to do surgery around nerves if you're not careful. But if it's going to help with pain, it might be worth it. If you're keep coming back to this, like Bill said, get a second opinion. Be careful with whatever you're going to do, and you're probably going to have to do PT after. I mean, quite honestly, you will. I know for me, that was back when my neuropathy was pretty bad at the start. And so it was things like, okay, how do I use my mobility aids without using my arm as much? So, okay, I would not recommend doing it bilaterally. Don't do both shoulders at once. That's just cruel to yourself. If you already have leg issues, removing both arms, I wouldn't suggest it. I would say do one, wait till you recoup enough to kind of manage, and then do the other if you're going to do it. And also see if it even helps, because if one doesn't work, okay, well, at least, it's only one down kind of a thing.
Good.
Okay, thank you, Pat. Pat, go ahead, please.
Very quickly, Mike, I'm really surprised. I didn't know you were even considering this. Before COVID, or right before, it really was becoming more and more difficult and things were shutting down. I was scheduled for shoulder replacement, and because of COVID, for 2 reasons. I went for a second opinion. The first person was absolutely sure I needed it done. The second person was equally sure I did not need it done and should do physical therapy. Well, COVID intervened and I did neither initially, and then was able to do physical therapy. And oh my gosh, I have no pain. I have complete use of my shoulder. And I never had the surgery. So I always say that was the one good thing that happened because of COVID to me. I avoided the surgery and have total use and no problems with my shoulder now. So I'm really glad that I didn't have the surgery. But second opinion had already made me question whether I needed it. And then the physical therapy just worked. So that's just my experience.
All right, Samantha, I'm coming back to you. I see you say I'm not seeing the store info and video in the chat. And I think it's right under your comment. Do you see it, Samantha?
Yeah.
She already reacted.
Yep, he
Oh,
posted
I'm
it for
sorry.
me. Thank you.
I've got too many things going. All right. Any other, Santa, do you have any parting words for us, like be good or naughty or nice or? Santa?
Oh, sorry. No.
Any words from Santa?
I'm good. I'll wish everybody happy holidays.
Okay, me too. Any other questions? If not, we will
Thanks for for having me in. Thanks for the information.
Okay, well, I'm going to, we're 4:15, which is, we started overtime at 4:45, so we usually go only 30 minutes, so it's gonna be 4:45. I know it's 4:15, so unless there's any other question, I'm gonna say, or questions, I'm gonna say that we just happy holidays to everybody, and Santa, I'm being good, I swear
Thank
to
you, Bill. I wrote a note. Yeah.
All right.
That down.
And remember to join if you haven't, to make sure you get the invitations for the invitation for the January meeting.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
Okay, and I hope we find Rebecca. I'm scared of Rebecca.
No, I mean, you got to give Rebecca points. She was on this meeting about 8 different times.
Yeah.
She would be on there for 3 minutes and then she would bang, it would just cast her out.
Anyway, we need Rebecca. I wonder if she took our money and scooted to
Well, I don't know.
Aruba.
I mean, if I were her, I don't know if I would have. I mean, the 8th time, yeah, but what about the 9th?
I don't know, 999. Right. All right, folks. Good to see you. See you.
Bye.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye-bye, all.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, I was going to say that's not Rebecca's fault. Zoom has been doing so many weird things over the last 6 months, probably because they need to enhance revenue.
Yeah.
And I'm involved with a heck of a lot of support group meetings, and also, of course, do part of my business on Zoom. And every time I go on, there's another software download, there's another update, and things are shifted around in my menu, and I'm like, what is going on? And it just, it kills time. It's just very annoying.
Well,
I
they
just
got a
want
little goodwill built up. So
comment about shoulders because I found their comments very helpful. Just everybody who commented. Yeah.
somebody, yeah.
And Pat, your comment about your second opinion in physical therapy is invaluable. I'm keeping that in mind. I'm, never going to get any kind of surgery without at least a second opinion.
Really? In fact, Mike, I will look up. I was so surprised that you were considering it. I couldn't think of the doctor's name, but who stopped it and said, "Whoa, wait, this is drastic. This is life-changing. You need to make sure you need it. And I feel you don't. And I want you to try PT first. And I can do anything with this shoulder." So I don't know.
Yeah, it's good to keep in mind that any biomechanical surgery is a major undertaking, and generally an ethical surgeon, and I'm not saying that a lot of them aren't, but an ethical surgeon will try almost anything else first because of the problems with moving around lots of tissues other than the target ones. And generally, they won't recommend surgery unless you're having a significant, morbidity in terms of particular functioning. It's not always just like, oh, I feel tingling and I get cramps. You have to actually, for most of them, have motor or autonomic symptoms, at least for the ones who are ethical, before they'll say, okay, this is going to be, need to have a surgical solution. And even within that group, you do get a lot of variation of opinion. I was certainly told a couple of times by people that I needed cervical spine surgery, and that was 15-20 years ago, and I still haven't had it, and I'm still functional. I had good physical therapy for a lot of that. So, really it's the type of thing where I tell people don't do it unless the alternative to not doing it is significant morbidity.
I'm listening.
Yes, but your masseuse is gone.
Oh,
Yeah,
no.
she's in the background.
And needs to come back.
She will after we're over.
Thanks, so she can drag me off to some other venture. And we're losing our light here, so yeah. I think this is time I stop hogging all the time. I think I'm gonna go. Take care.
All right,
Appreciate
bye.
it.
You take
Bye.
care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye all.
All right.
Uh,
So,
there's
oh
a
no,
user-
go ahead, Judson. I was just going to ask Pat about something that we had some exchanges back and forth, which you guys probably should hear about. But what's your thing?
Oh, well, just a quick thing. Somebody called PC has entered the call, and can you identify yourself?
PC?
Maybe
Yeah.
it's me in the background because I am PC. I don't know.
Well, no,
That's
it was
Oh.
actual PC.
Oh, I don't know.
I don't
Oh,
know who-
it's another window because I have somebody where it says, "Who is this?"
I alerted
That's
them.
you.
I'm about to kick them out because the
Oh.
meeting's
Yeah.
over.
I
Yeah.
would appreciate that.
Okay.
Who is this?
Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
All
So the thing that I'll tell you guys about, because I've been giving some thought to this, and Pat, unfortunately, what I can tell you about this is that since the last board meeting of WNA had several absentees, we didn't get to discuss a lot of the issues as much as we should have.
Uh-huh.
And there's a lot of other issues going on at WNA. I will tell you where we're really contemplating a couple of important things there, such as no longer being a membership organization in terms of dues. And that's going to require finding other sources of fundraising. So anybody who also wants to give to WNA, yes, please do. And changing our name as well because of the flack we get about Western. So one of the things that just recently happened, and Sean, I think, knows a little bit about this. Judd, you might also know a little bit about it too, is that the support group meeting with the Foundation for Peripheral Neuropathy was suddenly canceled. And a lot of emails.
Leaders meeting.
Leaders meeting, yes. Yeah, which was something that had only been going on with one of their staff members for about a year, and that person left. And it brought a lot of issues to the fore along the lines of, to what extent does FPN take the support group situation seriously? Now, what you guys should know is that Steve Klitzman, who has his own support group, that's the Bethesda group, has known the chair of the board of FPN for quite a while and had some conversations with him. And I've also tried to have conversations with that individual as well. And I have gotten the feeling that they do tend to want to avoid it. And obviously, anybody else here can put in their 2 cents about it. But I then had, a good email exchange where I said, look, there's no reason that FPN, if it really wants to be the premier neuropathy organization, shouldn't be using the resources of all the very intelligent, hardworking volunteers that are involved with the support groups. Right. I mean, I haven't really heard back anything from that, but what it might mean, and, please, Pat, everybody chime in, is that it may be time for us to start our own sort of consortium. We've certainly speculated about this in the past, and Jenny Frazier over at the Colorado Neuropathy Association was asking about it, and also Leslie McGregor, who's part of the board over at the Neuropathy Action Foundation and leads a group in Boston. So I'm sort of looking for what ideas about what people think we might want to do with this. And I know, Pat, you were talking about getting in touch with a number of the other support group leaders that I'm not as familiar with.
Right. I mean, like Joe Malkovich and people Linda, who have responded to the email chains. And we had sort of said, well, okay, this will be January. And we thought of a Zoom meeting. And if they really have passion or thoughts about this, they will come, or at least say, I can't come at that time or whatever, but we would get some sense, as you're saying now, of is there interest out there of a summit or a consortium of the leaders, irrespective of what FPN is doing, because they're now saying 6 months for their strategic plan. The ace in the hole may be Greg Masson, who pledged to Judd and myself when we were working with him that he was giving himself 2 years on the board And in that 2-year period, he hoped to see a new direction or an additional direction, at least, in support of the support group leaders as feet on the ground, as we've talked about. And if he didn't see that movement, he was going to then leave the board. So he gave himself 2 years to convince them that it's not just research for the cure that's essential. It's all these people out there living it now that need to be addressed. And they have repeatedly, for whatever reason, ignored or not been able to address this very real group of living, breathing people who could be advocates, who could be writing, who could be, as Mike likes to say, going to the congressional offices. We're right here in Virginia, but we've always sort of met with a wall for whatever reason. I mean, it's really amazing to me that I've been involved with them for at least 3 years, and heavily involved when it was Nancy Froman and we were trying to get Greg's press coverage. And I was a volunteer in that group, and it all just dissolved when Nancy left and Greg finished, and it was like they didn't need us anymore. And so they didn't even officially end this little advisory group that they had established with lots and lots of people very involved, and 20 some cities where Greg stopped, where we got or tried to get press coverage. They have an amazing compilation of press numbers and names that, oh, who knows what they're doing with, if they're doing anything with. It's a crime that they aren't. But anyway, so we were thinking in January we would host a Zoom meeting, perhaps with the Western Neuropathy Association, sort of inviting people to see where people's heads are, and are they willing, interested, or are they so overwhelmed with their own groups that they can't do anything more? I don't know.
Well, it's definitely something we'll talk about. We're actually going to have a board meeting in December. That's not something WNA has usually done, but the absentees at the November meeting has sort of like put us in that situation because, again, of all the things that are being considered over at WNA, which may impact what you were talking about.
Sure.
And I'm blunt about this, and I was blunt about it in my email to the board of director president at FPN, who I've kept nameless, of course, right now, although we know who he is, in that it's along the lines of, look, you have to learn to share the space, and there are other organizations out there, and you really should be using us as a resource. I don't know why they haven't. I don't know whether it's just they're somewhat oblivious because the board is mostly medical people and they don't think in this way, or whether or not there is a fear based upon the implosion of the original Neuropathy Association and how they actually absorbed a lot of that. But it's definitely something that we need to sort of keep very, very close to the surface. And again, Pat, a lot of this may depend upon whether we vote at the December meeting to do a name change and reconfigure the way WNA, as it is now, is configured. The other thing, which, and Shauna knows this, is that we're having a problem, and this goes back to, of course, Mike's original letter on this and piece on this, is that we're having trouble with one of our board members now whose health has deteriorated and may no longer be able to continue doing what he's been doing. I'm personally, Shauna will get a laugh out of this because Shauna's the first example. I'm really looking to expand WNA's board. We should have at least 2 or 3 more members, and at least one of them should have a lot of fundraising experience, because I think we're going to need it. I mean, I'm blunt about this. We brought Shauna on, and I sponsored Shauna, not only because, I adore Shauna, but also because of the fact that she's younger and has all that social media experiences. There are skills and talents that I wanted there because I don't have those. And the idea is to get as much as possible, at least from people who'd be willing to do it, a somewhat more expanded board. I definitely want to pick your guys' brains about how to do that. I realize it's probably a small group of people we're talking about, and some of the people who come to the WNA support groups who we have asked in the past have basically said, "Oh, no, please no." And and I'm sad about that. I think they would be good, but it's really, I think, a matter of getting a whole range of talents there and being able then to really go, in a sense, toe to toe with FPN on a lot of things in terms of fundraising and stuff. Because I think we have strengths they don't. And I also think that they're not, and there is the problem, of course, with outreach on their part, but I don't even know if they're a particularly great bastion of medical expertise, to be honest. In terms of what they have there, I mean, we have other, because obviously, like Norman Latov was once on the board of the Neuropathy Association. I don't think he wants to come back, but there are other doctors out there I bet we could invite. But that's not what WNA was always about. It was always about support groups. It was patient to patient.
Right.
That was Bev Anderson's thing. And I'm wondering if that's part of what we need to do to reach out and get, sort of like you guys have, a medical advisor.
Well, we too have said about expanding our executive team, we call it, and the medical advisor or director is one of those ways we're doing it. But we have danced around the whole fundraising issue, and we talked about making a plea for end of year, because people tend to do that with, and we couldn't justify asking if we couldn't clarify or explain why we were asking or how we would use the money. So we
have
just
the same problem.
We're
just right
let
there
that
with you.
Be a gentle reminder from Judd at today's meeting. Mainly because a woman wrote, a member wrote and said, I realize I want to give an end of year donation, but I'm not quite sure how to do it. So there you go. And we have begun working with Greg, Judd and I, just around our website development and social media, and just becoming more of a presence, a brand, a known entity, improving SEO, all of that. And we've worked behind the scenes, but we haven't gotten back with Greg. So that would be another thing coming up after the holidays. So there's all of this sort of activity going on, but I agree with you. Maybe we need to have a consortium or a meeting of the minds so that we're not spinning our wheels, reinventing things, or doing something in actual that might hurt Western neuropathy, or Western neuropathy doing something that would hurt us. I mean, how can we work more together so that this is a more cohesive effort instead of a group of
that's one of the problems that we were bringing up. I mean, there's a couple facets with that, which is, okay, one is making sure that our meeting dates don't overlap, our webinars don't overlap in times, because things like, okay, I know our autoimmune group only meets an hour, but I think it technically meets when part of another group is going on some days. And that's where having that, even just having a meeting to say, hey, what's everybody's dates, and then you leave, even just having that first part of, hey, attend or submit your dates so we can have it listed somewhere central, so we can have all the contact information. So, things like, okay, I know you and Bill had Brandy and her daughter, and sending them over to me and Diva to handle that, because you guys knew that, okay, yeah, we're not technically in your group, but you've got those resources. Having a central resource like that would be great. Whereas right now, like I'm 15 minutes from FPN. I live 15 minutes from FPN. I'm in like 2 towns over. Also, Buffalo Grove has exactly nothing in it too. I mean, there's a nursing home there that I'm technically eligible for, and I wouldn't go there because why? There's nothing there. so it's things where, even out here, people know about FPN. That's who they kind of know, even the doctors, but they don't really know where to suggest anybody. And FPN doesn't have great, I will second what Glenn's saying. They don't have great medical advice in terms of giving it to patients, especially. That's definitely a failure. They don't work well with others. Then on the other end, yeah, it's all a mess. So
Well, I
that's at
worry
least the minimum.
I
The
worry too
communication.
because
The fundraiser, we want what's the thing? The copywriting to do grants.
Yeah.
Because that's the other thing we're seeing is we need somebody to get resources from elsewhere because our patient population is Medicaid and Medicare. That's SDI,
Good,
Yeah.
good point. And I like, for example, Glenn, I never followed up with you for the guy from Dallas who wanted to start a local group. And I sent him to you, and I don't even know what happened. Did he pursue it? Did you pursue it? I feel like we have resources, but are we sharing them in the best way? How are we missing? The woman in Connecticut has been trying supposedly for more than a year to get something going. FPN does nothing more than say, here's the state, here's the contact person, here's a support group list. That's it. Nothing more.
Beyond the fact that a lot of that isn't even accurate. So.
Oh, amen, for sure. Yeah.
But yeah, as far as the Dallas person, we did outreach, both Catherine and I, and really didn't hear back. We could do it again. It's hard to do a support group, even in the age of Zoom and online. It's hard to do it.
Really? Moving parts.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
Judd.
Well, Glenn mentioned about fundraising. I don't even feel like that's a major issue. We can't figure out how to spend enough money to justify accumulating a lot of money. We have a budget. What do we have? $4,000 in the bank, and we're trying to figure out how's the best way to do that. Well, the things I could think of to do that would be best spent if we did it across our groups, and but never mind about that. $5,000, like Shauna's saying, is just okay. That's half a grant, one grant, or whatever. It's 3 grants, whatever. But it's just to me, that's not the problem. It's not money, it's people.
Volunteers.
And we, like you, see so many things that we could be economizing in terms of labor. I mean, what if we put our websites together? Wouldn't that be a great resource? Or I like the idea of meetings where there's no more than, let's say, 40 people there. I wouldn't want a model that got all of 200 people together for a support meeting. That doesn't seem the right way to go. But
yeah,
so many materials, like we're showing videos of other meetings to our members and then talking. Well, that's a good formula. I think we've got a good formula for support. It's a parade. It's not a crowd. It's people march by, they kick the tires, they decide it's not for them and they move on, or they get what they want out of it. And they're 4 months or a year member, and then they go. That's the way it is, I think. That's on planet Earth. Here we are.
Well, I think there's different kinds of support groups and needs too, because I think we've got, like, with PNS Network versus like WNA, we've got effective ways that we're running things, but I think that they're different. Like, I feel like our group is more a weird variety of people needing more of the help calming down to focus on, okay, what's the next steps, or like, hey, here's the basic information. Whereas I feel like your group is more of a long-term building upon itself, and that's it kind of different methods. Like there's been different groups that I've been in before either of these groups that there's reasons I didn't stick around, which is there wasn't anything that to come back for. It was that's why, and I'm sure that any number of us can talk about Michael Wright's Facebook group and him and all the issues with that. So
I don't even know, is he still active? I don't understand what Mike Wright's position is because he was so involved with FPN. He was raising money for them.
He's not even listed as a moderator on their Facebook because I was bored the other night on Facebook. He's not even listed on their group anymore, at least publicly. So I don't know, but I know that Bill was having issues with him not, 2 months ago.
Right.
And I know that's where I started having issues. First off, that was the first group I was in. And if that's your first experience, if you aren't willing to get past the rejection and get past the issues, you might not come back to a support group. Like that's a concern for me too, is, how are things like FPN, if you go to FPN, they're not really going to give you good resources. They're going to say, well, look at our site. That's what we've got, because that's the best that their patient experience is.
But they
okay, well, if that's your first experience, where do you go?
They spent $60,000 revamping their website. To what end? I mean, I don't know.
And a lot of the information in the support groups and resources is still inaccurate. Yes,
right.
It's a problem.
Exactly. Well, they weren't looking at our part, that's for sure.
Aren't we having the January meeting now?
No, this is the
pre-meeting meeting.
This is the pre-planning for the January meeting, because Mike, if he were here, would have very strong opinions too. So that was sort of why I was saying, maybe we needed to wait and I wrote that to the general group instead of to you. I didn't really want to open it up to everybody. I wanted us to have some context, some, thinking behind this. So
it turned out to be a good idea anyway, Pat, because of the stuff I've been telling you about how WNA's mandate and charter may change, and that may influence what we're looking to do. But I mean, in the end, having had experience working with the original Neuropathy Association and all the craziness there, and not wanting to go through a lot of similar things with FPN, I think that, yes, come December 22nd, WNA is having that board meeting. We're certainly going to make some decisions there. And I'm obviously going to get immediately on the, emails with you guys and with, various other people, with Leslie and with Jenny and with Linda Petio up in Calgary.
Yes, she had a very good point. She said that she wanted it to be actionable topics with a strong facilitator, because otherwise it would turn into the usual venting. Well, I didn't really think that it was venting. I thought, well, it doesn't matter. I thought that was a good point though. And I have to reference the questions that I asked Lindsay Colbert that were the topics that I thought we might address, seemed to freak her out. And I thought it pointed out that they weren't ready to say what this new person, April, was going to do and what her role was going to be. And then Linda said, well, that's fine, but 6 months to figure it out. Well, if they're making major changes to FPN, it could take 6 months of strategic planning. So we just don't know where their heads are. So,
well, the problem with that position, and I always got the feeling with the person who was occupying it prior to, that dealing with the larger support group network and those issues was part of their portfolio, but it was a very tiny part of their portfolio. They're primarily fundraisers, and that's what they're there for, as is this new person. Now, I realize that they have a very limited budget, but part of talking with Lou, of course, and this is like something that I've thrown across him, especially since he had made the suggestion that he's going to bring up in the board whether they need a support group person's presence on the board, is like, that's fine, but it makes no difference if your day-to-day administrative staff is not going to get involved in that as well. And I really think that a lot of it has to do with how that organization sees itself, even assuming it has that sort of a vision, because I'm not sure where the vision comes from. I would hate to think that the main purpose of that organization right now is to perpetuate itself, but a lot of nonprofits do wind up that way. I can speak to that from my nonprofit experience 30 years ago. And I'm wondering if maybe if we have such a meeting, by setting up such a consortium, we basically usurp that. We end run around it. We say, okay, here is our, grouping of people, of support groups, and our overarching rubric that'll have representatives from the various support groups as follows.
Well, let's talk with our mouth wide open, as my mom says. And what that means is tell the truth above board and so forth. Glenn, I have an even darker picture of what they're doing. The way to kill support groups is to say you're supporting them and never lift a finger. And so if we say, well, we're forming a new consortium of support groups, all they have to say is, no, please don't do that. We're working on this and we haven't told you about it.
That's what we say every time.
Yeah, but we don't have to listen.
Well,
See, I think
we've been listening. Do you know, in 3 or 4 years, I have never actually seen Lindsay Colbert. I mean, maybe once on a Zoom meeting. I mean, really, couldn't she reach out, especially after Nancy and Jennifer both fizzled? Couldn't she? I don't know. I think that they got started by the guy whose name I can never remember.
Jack Miller.
Jim, yeah, who gave them the money and gave them the direction towards research for the cure, and they've never gone beyond that. They've never really looked at the bigger picture and what if they're going to be the foundation, as they call themselves, for peripheral neuropathy.
It's an axiom. It's any organization takes on the personality of its founder. So you have to really work hard and almost refound it if you want to have other goals. It doesn't matter if they're there or not. Jack Miller may be dead for all I know, but I mean, his philosophy carries on. They're not interested in support groups. They're interested in stopping support groups.
Well, I don't know. I don't think that it's a conscious, I hope not, but yeah. I'm thinking that they were so, he sort of set the requirements. I'll give you this money in exchange for a focus on research for the cure. And is he still giving them money? I mean, that's what that Mike always says. We have no idea where their money is coming from or where it's going and how the decisions are being made. And we put that out at various times, asked them, could you expand on the research that's going on? Can you do it? We never get anything. Mike has demanded, actually, he got with, it was uncomfortable that we be allowed to participate in their board meeting or at least attend it. They won't even tell us the dates, which I'm sure is a public, available fact, but they just would not meet us halfway at all. Why? Are they afraid of us? Are they afraid of the numbers? Or do they just really not care?
There may be part of that,
and they have a different mission.
Yeah.
That's all.
Never attribute to malice what can be adequately explained by stupidity. But on the other hand, what bites them back, though, and you see, the Greg Masson thing should have taught them something, but I just don't know if they're smart enough to learn it, is that if you want to get more money thrown at this condition, you need to play the publicity game. And here was Greg going off and, actually doing this, basically on his own to start and like trying to bring awareness, to the whole idea. And they were willing to ride on his back, quite literally in a sense, while he was doing it. But after that, there was no follow-up. So now he's on the board and I'm not sure, why he accepted a position there and what their outreach to him was about getting a position there. It almost seems like we have to have you in there because you're the only one who's done anything to raise awareness in the last couple of years.
You see, only non-medical person also, I think. Maybe there's one other woman on the board that isn't a doctor, isn't a medical doctor, isn't in research.
Although technically Lou isn't.
We're still recording. You all want to keep doing that? We don't. We don't have to make it public, but Mike might
No.
appreciate looking.
Yeah, that's
But I
true.
mean, yeah, as far as the chair goes, he is a business person and attorney. But you know, obviously he's a patient, you know, he's a sufferer. But I've been very frustrated, especially since I met him in person back in 2018 at a Mount Sinai Hospital Neuropathy Summit, where I was my usual, you know, quite articulate self about things. And we had a discussion. I've been very frustrated that I can't even really get him to have an email discussion with me, which would be private. You know, it's
You
like,
mean Greg? Are you talking
no,
about Greg?
not Greg. Talking about Lou.
Oh, Lou.
Yeah. Because I'm just saying, like, look, you know, Lou, this is not like just any old person. You have met me. I'm, you know, secretary on the board of WNA. You know, it's something we should talk about in terms of if the mission of the organization of FPN really is to get publicity and possible treatments, never mind cures, for this, you really should be involved with a lot of these other people.
I don't know why it's a mystery, Glenn. You really know in your heart of hearts what the truth is. I mean, he's a gatekeeper. The goal of FPN is to keep us at bay. We don't have a key to the castle.
I thought it was basically just to be the preeminent organization, but in being that, I have no understanding of why they would want to keep other people at bay, because you would feel they would think that they would use the resources and control them from those other people.
Right, exactly. That's what Mike is surprised that they haven't opted in, so they could make sure we're not going to do something that's counter to what their their existence even. So
now whether they're frightened of Mike or whether they're frightened of me on some level, or they're frightened of Catherine on some level.
Well, I'm frightened of Mike, so I understand.
I
don't think Mike is that frightening.
Okay, good.
I mean, but to reiterate your point, Glenn, never attribute malice to what can be accomplished with stupidity. I don't think it's even fright. I think they just don't know how to communicate, because back when I was with you guys, I forgot what we were trying to do, Diva and I and all that for y'all with FPN, and I couldn't get a dang response back after maybe the second email.
Right.
And even those two emails were brief and vague and unhelpful at best. And that's just consistently what I've heard is there's just no communication. So maybe it really is a lack of foresight and ability to critically think and evolve from their original purpose and know how to include others, especially since they are more of a medical standpoint. They can't, empathize in the pure sense. They can sympathize all they want, but they can't empathize.
Well,
it's medical myopia.
It's just like Glenn said about the communication issue and the public awareness raising. The amount of work that went into compiling those press contacts, and to not, I'm going to just say it again, and not use that. It is so, no follow-up. It's so foolish. They opened a door and then didn't even continue the committee. So, all right.
And I can speak even from another standpoint, since you had mentioned, Brain and Life. I communicate every so often with Orly Abitsur, who is the editor there. And I've been interviewed by her for articles in there. And even she says that, like, part of the reason there's not as much neuropathy material in there is because you can call or write FPN and they'll get back to you when they feel like it. Yeah. Which is not the case apparently with the MS or the Parkinson's or the other organizations. For the conditions obviously they deal with.
Alzheimer's.
Yeah, I wondered about that. Her title, the new woman's title is Director of Development. And I thought, okay, well, that might encompass awareness raising. And then the very next email that Lindsay did write to me was that essentially she is a fundraiser, or maybe that was Lou. Yeah. And I'm going, what about the whole rest of the other? I mean, you're not even addressing the rest of the picture.
It's
and
another
development suggests that they might have, and I was thinking, oh, good, they're breath of fresh air. They're actually going to talk about, no.
It's another axiom of nonprofits is that, you know, they're going to do what they want to do. And development, fundraising takes up all of the bandwidth. If you have somebody with a split title, forget it.
Yes.
Development takes up everything, 110%.
Yeah, I live with one of those. My wife is the foundations officer at the Hearing Health Foundation.
Well, you know how
And
that
despite the fact that they're a small organization and they do pretty well fundraising and stuff, she'll be the first to tell you that it's like, what are the numbers? What are the numbers? What are the numbers?
Yeah.
You know.
What is her association? Did you say Hearing Health?
Hearing Health Foundation, HHF.
I have to look that up.
You can look that up.
Since I can't hear.
Yes, my wife has a long career in fundraising and development. Unfortunately, since she already has a full-time job and a part-time job as a volunteer fundraising for her choir, I can't convince her to come to WNA and do that there.
I can understand.
Which would be nepotistic anyway, so I wouldn't want to do it, you know. And it goes to the other issues we've had. Something else that came up is, because I know that FPN has this, is like, does WNA want to open itself up to actually talking to drug companies to get sponsorships?
When you look at their website, oh my gosh, it's not just Jack Miller, it's all the big farm that's supporting. Every webinar is paid for by one of the pharmaceutical companies. So,
but I can't help but feel that, especially if they wanted to do like Win Santor, and Win Santor was smart enough to reach out to us and other people to try and accumulate people for the trials. I can't imagine if any of those drug companies wanted to do a trial, they could go to FPN and say, oh, can you help us recruit participants for the trial? Because FPN doesn't have that.
Yeah.
They certainly don't.
So I'm bitching today. Yeah, I mean it's a holiday season. It's time to bitch, even with Santa Claus up on your screen. So,
jeez.
But yes,
like I said, 5 minutes. You got 5 minutes to vent.
Well, I'll go anyway. But we're going to have that meeting on the 22nd. Catherine should be at that meeting. She wasn't at the last one. We got to figure out. I'm going to try and do between now and then some possible recruitment for other board people. If you guys have any suggestions you want to throw at us who might be interested, please feel free. Although you probably want to recruit them for yourself, which I can understand. And the idea is, like, hopefully we'll expand enough and we'll see if we're going to actually change our name and our purview, so that if we are going to have such a summit, it'll be from a place where, what's the term I'm looking for, Shauna? It'll be from a new perspective. And
yeah, I didn't know what word you were looking for there. Sorry.
Half the time I don't know. It's that time of year, and you know what part of my problem is, just so you guys can get a laugh. Today was the very last ever paper and pencil SAT administration in North America. And this is and of course I do test prep for a living. So all of the people who are not very tech happy were like bothering me over the last several months, and particularly the last several weeks, trying to get in tutoring sessions and the like. So, I mean, I was busy, but it was distracting. And I actually haven't heard from any of my students who took the exam today. I should text them and see what they saw. But part of my distraction has been that. And then the other thing, of course, that's going to happen, since the test has now become computer adaptive, that's what the next test in March is going to be, is to shift all of our material and strategies in that direction. So I have been busy and often annoyed, because if you think FPN is hard to deal with, you should try and deal with the educational testing service.
Okay, I don't think I want to, just by the way you're suggesting it. So,
well, I never told any of you this. There was a documentary film by Abamarama Films called The Test and the Art of Thinking, that was done some years ago, back in the late 2010s, that I am prominently featured in. And if you ever want to go look at that and hear me rant about things other than neuropathy, you can go do that.
What is the name of that again? Because
test and the
The
art.
test and
Donna's
the
all
art
over
of
this.
thinking. The rant starts in the trailer for that film and does not end. And I'm not the only one ranting, fortunately. One of the things they did is they interviewed what we like to call in the test prep world the tutorati, because we're the tutoring Illuminati. It's basically the people who founded Princeton Review. And then when Princeton Review was taken over by Bain Capital Partners, which is not a, if you're Mitt Romney, you should not tell a batch of people with 180 IQs how to do test prep. It's just not going to work. And it's why that organization is not what it once was. Basically, Princeton Review trained all its competition because everybody went off and founded their own companies because they couldn't stand Bain. So basically, you'll see like the people who were interviewed there, like 90% of them are ex-Princeton Review. And it's just very, very interesting, the perspectives that we all have over the years about all this. And high stakes testing in general. So, but that's the other part of my life that you guys don't get to hear about neuropathy.
I had no idea. This is the first I've ever heard that you were involved in this. So
I didn't even know you were still working.
Me either.
Yeah, you got to make some money somehow. I mean, it could be said that I'm semi-retired and consulting, but it's good because, as Shauna will tell you, it provides excellent Fig Newton money. So
excellent what?
Fig Newton money. The other thing I am known of in the online world is being a tremendous agitator and proponent of the necessity of Fig Newtons.
Fig Newtons are definitely up there. It's 2 a day. I know his current limit is 2 a day, but also you forgot neti pots. You were also up there on neti pots.
Yes, I also talk about neti pots a lot. But yes, I tell people as the commercial one said, Fig Newtons are not cookies; they are fruit and cake.
Well, my goal for 2024.
Absolutely hate Fig Newtons. Sorry, Glenn.
My goal for 2024 is to figure out how to get Glenn's face in the center of his Zoom screen.
Well,
it'll never happen.
No?
You know what it is? I sit in this chair at my desk that has adjustable height that decides to adjust itself every so often.
Oh, that's
so I wind up like all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Okay, I have one last comment. Shauna, thank you for telling me about Linda's website. I've never been to it, so
you should. Yeah, Linda does a very good job.
Okay, I would look for that.
We'll put out there, in addition to one of our board members' health, mine is a little rocky, so I am putting that out there just so you guys are aware that we're playing it by ear. So that way it's a common language.
You say you will absolutely not die on me, Shauna, because then I will come track you down.
Oh.
You know, there's already so many jokes. I'll have to pass them along to you later. They're definitely not the recording appropriate type.
Hey, a lot of that started when Irene Beer, who was the chair of the Neuropathy Association, the actual chair of the board for a long time, and she had motor neuropathy, so she did wind up in a wheelchair. And the last 10 years of her life was really a never-ending series of dark humor. I mean, I loved her for it, even though I realized she was deteriorating. You could see it. But, I mean, it's just like, it was incredible the way she actually dealt with it all over time. She never lost, even when she was like very, almost paralyzed, she never lost any of that. And if I can be, that sort of person in the face of that, I couldn't be doing worse.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you got to stick around for a while, Shauna.
Trying. Oh, I almost got, by the way, because Glenn's going to find this interesting. I got a precursor again to Thomas's sign again. And I was all like, ooh, this is going to be fun. So it's interesting over here.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time
Thomas's
hearing.
sign is Thomas's sign, the name, I'll type it, is a rare complication. It's a GI problem. Normally it means that you've got, some sort of ampullary cancer, which is all that. But also it can occur from severe malnutrition and malabsorption mixed with internal bleeding, which is what I get. So I'm at the point where I don't really absorb most of my food right now. I've got another B vitamin deficiency because, it's always fun to go back to that. And get constant blood because of I have mast cell activation syndrome, but I'm allergic to everything. So we kind of just gave up at a certain point because it's just not sustainable. So
Yes,
Wow.
definitely go look up Thomas's sign because I could tell you what it is, but I don't want to watch you guys hit the ceiling. So
I don't want to.
Oh boy.
Okay, better investigate this.
Glenn, I'm gonna quickly send you a DM of what someone called it to me. The
yeah, okay, I could see that. It's but yes, we want to keep Sean, despite Shauna's multiple conditions, we'd like to keep her around for a little longer. I'm sure her boyfriend would also like to keep her around for a little longer.
Yeah.
Oh, why not?
He just got to the halfway point during the meeting. My boyfriend's driving back from Chicago area back to Dallas area, so gotta attest that he's safe.
Gotcha.
Shauna has much knowledge and a lot of skills that I don't have, and we need to keep her around if only to enhance our social media presence.
Well, I'm just amazed all the time at every reference to a new disease or condition. You have a response, about it. I'm just amazed. I said, is this all she does? Is read and absorb and learn and memorize?
Yes. Genuinely, yes. So actually, this is fun. I got the diagnosis of autism last year. That was the correct diagnosis. I got misdiagnosed for a while. And it turns out that explains it. So my special interest is medical research, to make it easy. It's my most entertaining thing. It's so fun. And on top of it, and Glenn will definitely corroborate this, I get all the rare complications, like all this stupid crap that it's like, why?
Yeah.
So
I can relate because the old physician adage that when you hear hoofbeats, think horses, not zebras. So Shauna and I are both in our own ways okapis.
Wow.
And Sean is probably even worse. I mean, at least I got an acronym out of my condition. I don't know what we're going to call it other than Phelps disease because.
No. I don't even want to call it that because that gives too much credit to people who don't deserve credit. So maybe we'll go back to the original misspelling of my name, the German way
Shauna syndrome.
Shauna-itis.
Right. I'm going to go and on that positive note and make a lovely dinner of albacore tuna. So I will see you in January. Great holidays, everyone. And
yes, have a good time all. And yes, you make a very, very good Santa, Judge. I will say that. Definitely a good Santa. Got to go around the neighborhood and have the kids ask you for stuff.
I'll go around and trick or treat them.
Yeah, you took Rodney Smith's position. Rodney used to always put on the Santa hat.
Yeah, well, he plays Santa. He and his wife, they do the whole shtick. Hey, what happened to him? He was on for a while and then he just got off.
Yeah, I don't know. All right. Yeah. Keep us informed about the December 22nd meeting. Shauna, be healthier, please.
Yeah.
Will do. I'll see you guys next year. Another year older, another year wiser, hopefully.
There you go. And we'll see if we get the exit survey now that we're finally leaving.
Right.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. Okay, let's see.
Okay.
Bye, guys. Good to see everybody. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays. No, it's the final meeting of the year. Is that what you meant?
Yeah. You said happy holidays. I said, are you having war on Christmas?
Oh.